Welcome to day 2 of the week, and indeed, it is a brand new day the Lord has made. We're here and we're glad in it. My name is Benjamin Akakpo, and you know how we do it on the AM show. Expect Bernice and I to serve you the finest of morning television. We're glad to have you. Now, here's what you can expect on the show this morning. Right after the news, we'll be joined by energy analyst Kojo Poku. He'll be our guest for the news review. But then we get into the big stories, as we always talk about. And the first one we're going to be talking about, our investigations have shown that the country's biggest indigenous cocoa buying company, that is the PBC, the produce buying company, risks a possible collapse following its steep decline in market share from 30.88% in just a few years ago to 8% currently. That's just about a 5-year span. We ask ourselves what exactly has happened in the interim in between. It's now a tale of unpaid staff, cocoa beans stuck at the farms, and in fact, clerks that are engaging in double dealing. Well, this morning, we'll be interacting with our guests on that all-important matter to find out what the ailment specifically is of our produce buying company and why we have come to this point. Well, on the second leg of the conversation, we'll also be looking at a very pertinent issue, and we're going to be looking at the communications department of the University of Ghana. Now, they have also come up with some directives in terms of nation building. We'll be bringing you the scoop on that. And from there, we'll head to the spring meeting of the IMF. Now, George Riafe, who is with Joy Business, my colleague, has been monitoring the situation, and there's quite a bit to say from that. Yesterday, he shared some thoughts from his interactions with some of those on the team that will determine whether Ghana gets its program approved. We'll be bringing you the latest on that as well. So it's all about our economy. It's all about our cocoa beans and what is happening to our produce buying company. And it's all about the communications department at the University of Ghana this morning on the AM show. So stick and stay. We have the full package. Just relax and let's serve you. My name is Benjamin Akakpo, and I'll be serving you the news up next. Thank you for staying. Let's get into our first story now. And government says it is considering further expenditure cuts following an IMF spring meeting. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta says Ghana has been assured of a $250 million support from the World Bank, in addition to an expectation of receiving a major boost in its quest to secure an IMF program later this week. Mr. Ofori-Atta has been speaking at a news conference in Washington, D.C.
I think, first of all, a response to the 250 million, we are establishing a stability fund to ensure that we can intervene in the event of any solvency and liquidity issues. The World Bank has committed to $250 million of that, and we are still talking with a number of donor partners, including the Africa Development Bank, for further resources. Government itself will put some money into that. We expect really latest by the third quarter for at least the World Bank resources to come through, working to accelerate Africa Development Bank and government itself's participation in that. So that's on the issue of the $250 million. In terms of the week, I think George will be able to testify himself. It's been a very positive week for Ghana. The fund is very comfortable with where we are. We are all looking in the next few weeks for the Paris Club to come in with their financing assurances. Pretty confident that everybody will come through. And the managing director of the IMF has committed that as soon as the assurances are in, they'll set up the board meeting, and we expect to get a quick approval from then on. So on the fund side, I think it's been a very good week. But beyond that was also the beginning of discussions with the Eurobond investors. We did an investor presentation and then met with their committee, and those gone well. I think we are setting up the rubrics of the discussions. There's some more information to be given to them by the IMF and the World Bank. And once that's done, I guess we will then begin negotiations on that.
Now, former President John Dramani Mahama is asking delegates of the National Democratic Congress to select the best candidates for the parliamentary elections and unite for the general election in 2024. He says he is sure to lead the NDC into the 2024 election, but how the party handles the aftermath of the May 13 primaries is paramount to winning the general elections. Mr. Mahama was addressing branch and constituency executives in the Akan constituency of the Oti region, and correspondent Peter Senu now reports.
The two-day tour of the region began at Likwe Mate in the yet-to-be-created constituency in the Gwan district. The tour took the former president to Buem, Biakuye, Krachi East and West constituencies for day one. Day two of the tour took the former president to Krachi Nchumuru, Nkwantan North and South, and finally, the Akan constituency. His message to the delegates is to give him the maximum approval on May 13, where delegates elect parliamentary candidates and a flag bearer for the 2024 general and parliamentary elections.
KJB constituency Mundi mi Border 2019 me baha and I'm share me bo. What's the President Mahama? You be more than 90% of the vote. And Pastor Bosha mo share no. Mudi so pepe. Enti me ba ya chairman engineer manamu. Aka say 1.something% a year ya no. Ma ko hwehwe no mohu. Enti mo de beka ho. Enti mo de ka ho a. Ebe 99.99999%.
He has also called for unity in the party regardless of whoever wins the mandate of the delegates on May 13.
Yanya young town for Nipa or your opponent any MPP for. Enti ye say Nipa na yenina enta Nipa nechi. Every say send ya boa say Nipa no. Amane timi edin kunim no. Sa na eduru yan so a
his message to the delegate was not without a swipe at the ruling NPP.
And yet Ghana ye NDC share so no. Yedema Nana Akufo-Addo no. And yes Ghana ninye. Abra ye NDC wa be mu a ye hwe Ghana so. Na ye hotoye. Menka se na bibia ye nso na ye hotoye.
He has accused them for excessive borrowing without any valuables to show for it.
Borrow more than 470 billion cedis. Now, besides
in the Akan constituency, two interested persons are contesting the incumbent, Engineer Yao Gomado. May 13 will decide. Peter Senu for JoyNews.
Let's talk road safety now, and residents along the Awoshi-Ablekuma highway are worried about frequent pedestrian knockdowns in the area due to a dysfunctional traffic light on that stretch. They say the situation has persisted for the past 4 years, exposing them to danger. They want the authorities to intervene to save lives, and some of them have been speaking to Samuel Mbura.
It's over 4 years or 3 years now. This traffic light is not causing, and it's causing accidents. It's causing accidents. A lot of people have got problem because of this traffic light. If there was a way that it can be solved so that the light will work, I'll be happy.
You said for the past 4 years, this traffic light has not been working?
It has not worked for past 4 years.
Is it that it comes off and on at a point, or it doesn't work at all?
It doesn't work at all.
When you talk about it, there is a problem on it because it's not working for past at least market side about 2 years ago. There's some incidents happened on Banyard Mangwasi. Was a car accident or somebody, and then for that on there's no working on traffic lights. When you check about the Banyard tree, it's not working by now. So as for traffic light for now, there I'll talk about that one.
What? Yeah, person 24. I say, "Be sure na why ni ya man." because so any my be boy nyina
so far ache sometimes a woman eba na sanko even
the traffic lights have been dysfunctional for a very long time, and it is exposing us to danger on this road. Even the street lights are not also working. The situation has contributed to many crashes on this road. It is really worrying. I can't even count the number of times, but we witness serious accidents here every 3 days. People die, others get injured as a result.
Serious.
Now, in our next story, more than 10,000 children parade the streets of Kumasi without decent shelter and guidance, according to the Youth Development Council. Despite the dangers associated with street life, the phenomenon of children of school-going age wandering the streets continues to increase at a fast rate. Love FM's Clinton Yabwa now reports.
Mercy, her real name, fled from her home in Garu in the Upper East region to Pampaso in Kumasi. Her educational needs were shattered because of her detached parents' inability to afford her education, influencing her decision to flee home. Mercy spent most part of her day working at an eatery. She lives on 12 cedis a day to fend for herself, whilst spending her night in front of a kiosk.
So when I completed school, I didn't have any supporter to help me to continue my education. I decided to travel to Kumasi here so that I can join my friends on the street to do business to earn a living. I didn't have any place to sleep, so I decided to look for one-man shop so that I can sleep on the veranda.
Moving through Kumasi, it is impossible not to notice the growing number of young people roaming the streets. The life of homelessness and unmonitored children on the street is termed streetism. Like in the case of Mercy, many children aged below 18 years are compelled to be on the streets due to difficult social economic circumstances some families are experiencing. The situation is fueled by migration to seek greener pastures in the cities, peer influences, and attempts to flee unjust social practices. Most street children, whether in the cold night or under the scorching sun during the day, engage in menial income generation ventures to survive. Some of them end up as head porters, often referred to as kayaye, and others as dishwashers, street hawkers, while some engage in petty thievery. To survive on the street, they are exposed to the risk of assault and other life dangers. Mercy tells Love News she lived in fear of being assaulted sleeping in open spaces on the streets of Pampaso at night.
There are some boys who always roam around. So the dangers of being on the street is that I was afraid maybe one day I'll be raped by those boys who will be roaming around the place.
In commemoration of International Day for Street Children, Save Child Advocacy held a public campaign in Kumasi to create awareness and attention to the menace. Human Resource Officer Akwesi Prempe said collective interventions are critical to the fight against the menace.
NGOs working with children in street situation within Kumasi, that is Save Child Advocacy, Muslim Family Counseling Services, and Chance for Children, came together and then we did a research. And we counted 7,000 children in street situation. Unless we all come together and join our efforts together to help, if not to eradicate, maybe mitigate the rate at which child streetism is getting out of hands or increasing.
Kumasi Metro Director for Social Welfare and Community Development, Esther Aprekunyako, cautioned individuals and institutions against parading children on the streets to beg for alms and engage in commercial activities.
They have potentials and they have talents. Children will be our future leaders. And so, to the general public, those who really use children as hawkers, the agents who brings children for begging so that they will enrich themselves out of that, to desist from that act. Because if you are caught by the law, you'll be found culpable.
Today was observed on the theme, Safety for Street Children, highlighting the lives of children on the streets as valuable. Safe Child Advocacy is an initiative of the Catholic Archdiocese of Kumasi to address the problems of young vulnerable children who are displaced and homeless in Kumasi City. Reporting for JoyNews, Clinton Yeboah.
Let's talk education now, and pupils of the new Amakum MAJHS in Kumasi can now learn under conducive situations with a shelter and the renovation of a 10-unit classroom block by a private company. After studying in the dilapidated school structure for several years, a Akakpo group of companies intervened to put the item in shape to support the school's growing population. The renovated 10-unit classroom block is set to accommodate over 500 students within the community and its environs. There's more on this in this report.
School had to be suspended anytime it rained due to the weak structure of the new Amakum MAJHS.
The roofing, everything was bad. When it rains, the children have to put some boards in front of the chalkboard just to wait for the dripping to stop before we can continue.
So as a homecoming committee, we decided to look at various thematic fields, starting with education, to help develop the school so that it will have a conducive environment for the kids to have, that study environment to learn very well.
As an intervention, a Akakpo group of companies renovated the 10-unit classroom block for the Amakum community. CEO Kobna Echampong says it was important to aid the community to save the students from the danger posed by the old structure.
As a building and civil engineering firm that rallies on our quality of engineers, quant surveyors, and other technicians in delivering above standard projects across the country, we do not take quality of education for granted. With this in mind, we took that decision to make this investment in education within this community. We have made several upgrades, including steel barriers for the safety of our pupils, re-roof the entire building, wiring of the building, fixing of doors and windows, fixing of ceiling, screening of the floor, and painting works, among others, at the total cost of 474,799.52 pesos Ghana cedi.
Headmistress of the school, Madam Elenobosi Dakom, says the new school block comes to ease the burden on school authorities.
We are very, 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 very happy that now we can boast of a fine school. Now we can rise up in the morning to come and teach.
Amakomhini Nana Edu Mensam, who was overwhelmed by the gesture, touted his desire to promote education in the community.
We want to make this place a center of education in Kumasi. Enti etotu yeni ape aboafo a ombeso yemu yepese yesi library kese pa ewo baby a yewe na ICT center no so yehwe se ebeye ni yi epese afi we say resource beba no na ye one among the best.
The Ashanti Regional Minister Simon Osei Mensah entreated school authorities to ensure good maintenance culture.
We don't want to come back here maybe after a year or two, then we see this building back dilapidated. That one, it will not encourage other people even to emulate the good example that Mr. Atechampo has set.
For JoyNews, Nana Boachi Danko Yadom, Kumasi.
Well, it's a wrap for the news, but stay with us. Energy analyst Kojo Poku joins us shortly for the news review. Well, thank you for staying with us. Shortly, we'll be joined by energy analyst Kojo Poku. He is our guest for the morning. But helping us bring you this news review is Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. In case you haven't heard about them, let me tell you a bit about them. They're offering free prostate screening for you if you're a man. Free prostate screening for you if you're a woman. In fact, not prostate. Free female fertility screening if you're a woman. Women don't have a prostate, by the way. And they're offering all of this to you totally gratis. Now, here's where you can locate them across the length and breadth of Ghana. You can find them here in Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. In Kumasi, Kronum Abuehia behind the Angel Educational Complex. Then there's Takrade Anaji Estate, Tema Community 22, Techima Hanswa, and Esiama Enzema. I'm sure you'd like to pick up your phone and give them a call. And these are the numbers you'd want to give them a buzz on. 0244 867 068. 0244 867 068. Alternatively, you could reach them on 0274 234 321. 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But it's a pleasure because this is just the start of the news review, and we'll be getting into some very pertinent matters. I've heard a lot of you talk about that Al Jazeera tape and the gold situation and names that are mentioned here and there. In fact, when I just stepped outside to take something from my car and come into the studio, I heard people talking about it. Some saying that we hear the name of the president mentioned one time too many and all of these scandalous dealings. But I've also followed the Twitter post of Koisuman, counsel to Mr. President, who says that there's never been any such engagement with this Matthias or whatever person who is captured in that gold scandal by Al Jazeera network. I would wish, though, that the names of those in the top echelons of our leadership in this country wouldn't be mentioned in that breath, whether previously or now. And there are so many incidents we can look at previously and currently. And I'm not just talking about this administration. But this morning, as I contemplated everything happening in our country, where we find ourselves at the very brink, on the precipice of debt, chaos, if you like, our inflationary situation, our currency exchange situation, the cost of living, the reality of doing business today. When I just contemplate everything, I keep getting worried because as I interact more and more with some of my colleagues, with people who are my contemporaries, I keep wondering about Ghana's future, especially with our crop of misleaders. Where are we heading? Remember that song, We Are Going. Heaven knows where we are going. We know we will. We know we will eventually. But like the Israelites in the desert, though, is it a journey of 40 days that we're going to spend 40 years to complete? This morning, there's so much, my inner ruminations have got me talking like this, but sometimes I just sit back, reflect on Ghana, and it makes me sad, really sad. But I will not get depressed. Decadence, despondency should have no place with us. But this morning, I just wanted to ask you watching me this morning, what makes you proud as a Ghanaian? Think about it. What makes you proud as a Ghanaian? Share with me, feel free. I'm not saying there's nothing, I'm just asking you for your responses. What makes you proud as a Ghanaian? What makes you stand out, do you think? How optimistic are you for the future? Share with me via our live feed. And again, I'll throw the challenge to you. For those who have never, you may watch us on TV all the time. Just go on JoyNews on Facebook. Yeah? JoyNews. Just key in JoyNews on Facebook. Get to the live feed and send me your responses to those questions. You might as well, since you're going there, follow JoyNews on Facebook as well. and we'd be very grateful. In fact, we're grateful now, even before you do that. Thank you very much. Do we have Kojo Poku yet joining the conversation? Mr. Poku, are you there somewhere? Okay, Kojo Poku is not yet there with us, but we'll get into the papers this morning and find out what they have to say. So I'll be looking predominantly at the Ghanaian Times, the Daily Guide, the Finder, and Economy Times. Interesting, this morning I don't have the Daily Graphic, which usually would come with a bag of stories I would want to do, but we'll settle for what we have. So the Ghanaian Times newspaper, ECG disconnects TTU and two others over 3.3 million Ghana cedi debt, and the ECG is still not running amok, but is still rampant, claiming what is its own. EC to conduct Kumawu by-election on May the 23rd, and we've already seen the charge from the different political parties within the MPP, within the NDC, and then a private candidate as well, an independent candidate, I should put it that way, who is lacing his boots and who has made some claims about the MPP, for which reason he's going to run as an independent one more time. Now, securing $3 billion IMF support, President signs 3 tax bills to pave the way for government to bag 4 billion Ghana cedi revenue annually. And you know what I'm talking about. The 3 taxes that some were hoping the president would not give assent to make or fashion into law. Well, we all knew that wouldn't happen. Most of us did. Police probe burning to death of 3 suspected armed robbers at Asankragwa. On the back page, we have 2023 Domestic Outbound Tourism Survey launched at Winneba and the Ghana Statistical Service in the mix there. Let's get into some of these stories now. And let's talk about the economy. Let's start from there. Let's go to page 11. So President Nana Akufo-Addo has signed into law the 3 new tax bills recently passed by Parliament. The new tax bills include the Excise Duty Amendment Bill 2022, the Growth and Sustainability Levy Bill 2022, and the Income Tax Amendment Bill 2022. According to the Minister of Information, Kojo Poku, the document has since been given to the Clerk of Parliament to commence the necessary administrative processes. Now, speaking in an interview in Accra yesterday, he noted that the necessary transmittals were underway before the Ghana Revenue Authority could commence implementation. The majority in Parliament said the measure formed part of moves to raise 4 billion Ghana cedis in revenue annually. Now, the Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, said the bills were essential to its quest to secure an IMF bailout. He further explained the taxes were targeted at bolstering the sustainable generation of domestic revenue for the country. The 3 new tax bills, which were passed under certificates of urgency, are projected to complement the government's efforts to raise more than 4 billion Ghana cedis annually. But again, the watchers of this space have wondered whether indeed we shall get what we seek in terms of the revenue projections in these very dire economic times. Only time will tell. But let's do some politics now. And the by-election to elect a new member of parliament, that story also on page 11. The by-election to elect a new member of parliament for Kumawu constituency in the Ashanti region is slated for May the 23rd, the Electoral Commission has announced. It followed the death of the former MP of the area, Philip Baswa, at the age of 53 at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital on March the 27th. Now, according to the Electoral Commission in a statement signed and issued by its chairperson, Jean Mensah, in Accra yesterday, the exercise would be conducted in line with Article 1125 of the Constitution. And it quotes, saying, in quote, the Electoral Commission wishes to announce for the information of the general public that following the death of the Member of Parliament for the Kumawu constituency, Philip Baswa, the seat of the constituency in Parliament has become vacant. In accordance with Article 1125 of the Constitution, as amended, the Electoral Commission will hold a by-election in the constituency on Tuesday, the 23rd of May, 2023, the statement said. In this regard, it said the commission would receive nominations from prospective candidates from May the 2nd to May the 5th at the Setre Kumawu district of the Electoral Commission. Two interesting stories there on page 11 of that newspaper. Let's come to page 3 before we turn to the back page of the newspaper. And there is this story: police probe burning to death of 3 suspected armed robbers. And the police at Asankragua have commenced investigations into the burning to death of 3 suspected armed robbers on Sunday at Mosiaso in the Wasa-Menfi West municipality of the Western region. The victims, identified as Ike, 24, Abbas, 25, and Abeku, 26. Interesting, 24, 25, and 26 were allegedly killed following a robbery that occurred in that community. Information gathered by the Ghana News Agency revealed that on Sunday, 5 armed men supposedly attacked a gold buying shop and in the process shot and killed Frank Arthur, the attendant at the facility. The incident angered residents at Mosiaso, who conducted investigations leading to the identification, arrest, lynching, and setting ablaze of the 3 robbers, while 2 others escaped. The charred bodies of the suspects and that of Mr. Arthur, the victim, have been deposited at the Father Thomas Alan Rooney Memorial Hospital mortuary at Asankragua for preservation and autopsy. A rather sad development there. Scrap dealer jailed 20 months for stealing laptops. That is the other story I'll be looking at. And the scrap dealer, Bawa Anko, has been sentenced to 20 months imprisonment by the Accra Circuit Court for stealing 5 laptops worth 36,000 Ghana cedis. Anko, who broke into offices of Sinlab Ghana Limited and made away with the computers, was sentenced to 15 months on the charge of unlawful entry and 20 months on the charge of stealing. So sentences will, however, run concurrently. So he's doing 20 months in jail for that. An accomplice, Godwin Nyame, a 47-year-old trader who dishonestly received the 5 laptop computers, has been granted 70,000 Ghana cedi bail with 2 sureties. So I'd like to say this. Usually, people forget. If you take custody of stolen goods, you better have a good alibi, because if it is traced to you, you'll also face the consequences. You'll have to dance to the music. So note that. Someone comes to you with very cheap products and you think, oh, it's a good deal. Did you bother to find out where this person got the items from? If you are found to be complicit, it could be problematic. But we have Kojo Poku joining the conversation. Kojo, a very good morning to you.
Good.
I was asking, as I started this segment this morning, I was trying to find out, Kojo, what does it mean for you, before we get into the stories, what does it mean for you to be Ghanaian? What makes you proud as a Ghanaian? What would you celebrate today as a Ghanaian? I've just been thinking about so many things, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I'd like to find out from you, what makes you positive as a Ghanaian?
You know what? That's a very deep question, Ben. I mean, I don't think many of us have really sat and thought of what makes us Ghanaian. But I think it's the warmth of the country. Look, Ghana is one country that I have lived in that I think that you feel welcome even in a strange land. As I speak to you now, I'm in Wa, in the Upper West. And I've been here for a couple of days, and I feel very welcome, even though, like in many parts of some other countries, you might move from one part of the country to another, and you feel that you don't belong. But I think what makes Ghana Ghana is the warmth of the nation. Everybody, we are more welcoming, and we accept others warmly. I think that is also the other side that makes us the bad side, which is also we are easy to accept people into our midst without actually looking past what the person is bringing. So I think, look, every good thing has a bad side to it. But I think if you ask me what makes me proud to be a Ghanaian, I would say the warmth of the people. I think that's what's the most important thing for me.
So if I asked you to celebrate one thing today, what would you celebrate in Ghana? The freedom also is important. Me and you are able to sit on this
your channel and be able to express our views without any fear of victimization. I think that's also a good thing. So I will celebrate that. I mean, I will celebrate the freedom of speech that we have, though some people take it too far. I think it's something that we should celebrate, because in the past, some people did not have the opportunity to say what they want to say and basically get away with it by saying what they want to say. Most people have died for less in this country. So today, I think we can celebrate the freedom of speech that we have.
Well, thank you, Kojo, for sharing your thoughts with us. Have you seen that latest report, though, by the United States on freedom of speech, on the freedom of the press, on the likes of Oliver Barker-Vormawor and his arrest and all of that? Have you seen those?
No, I've not seen those, but I don't think if those reports, I've not seen it and I don't know what's in it, but I don't think it's something that it's negative. I think it's all positive.
Let's get into the papers. The Ghanaian Times. I've just been reading about the EC's bid to conduct the Kumawu by-election on May the 23rd. You remember Philip Baswa, unfortunately, meeting his maker. Then there is securing the $3 billion IMF support. President signs 3 tax bills to pave way for government to back 4 billion Ghana cedis in revenue annually. There are doubters who have said, you're just going to heap a burden on top of people, and you're not even going to be able to rake in the 4 billion, just as with the e-levy. And then there is a story about the police probing the burning to death of 3 suspected armed robbers at Asankragua. So they go to, and by the way, they are 24, 25, and 26, young men. They go to this place to attack a gold buying shop, kill someone there, and then they are found out and lynched. Now, it's alleged that these are the people. We don't know whether these were actually the perpetrators of the act. I've just been taking a look at those stories. And a scrap dealer who has been jailed 20 months for stealing laptops. Any comments on these stories we've looked at?
Yeah, I think I'll take a bite at the 4 billion a year tax that's been passed. You know, I have always said that that tax is really coming in to try and draw water from a rock. We are in a bad place as Ghanaians where we don't have much. And for government to now implement taxes to try and get more money from us, it's going to have the negative effect in building wealth in the nation. As it stands now, we really don't have liquidity in the economy. And what government should have rather do is basically find ways to basically give us more money to spend to boost up the economy again after the COVID and then the hardship that came after as a result of the international wars and stuff like that going on. Look, my position on why we don't need the taxes is very simple. I have said that most of the debt that we have today came as a result of us founding oil. Ghana is an oil-producing country, and I think at times people forget. The GMPC, that is supposed to be one of the richest corporations because we found oil, today is broke. We have abandoned the upstream and now signing bills for 4 billion. 4 billion Ghana cedis is about $400 million a year. Sorry, $400 million a year. You can get that in a month with just increasing your offshore production by 200,000 barrels a day, which is very simple. Okay, it's not that difficult that people think it is. We've sat down and basically ignore all the companies that have signed petroleum agreements with the country. We just had Akakpo just broke their POD, which is like 3 years overdue. There are companies sitting on blocks. There are litigation, ENI Springfield, which has been going on for almost 3 years. All these things has affected our oil production upstream. And we could have easily attained that 200,000 barrels a day. And today, we could be making $600 million a month. Okay, so you are trying to pass a bill.
Aren't you making this appear too simple? If it were that simple, do you think those at the helm of affairs wouldn't be doing it? What are the challenges? You've spoken about ACA or another entity sitting on an oil block for a while. It's not that simple, is it?
It is is very simple. It is just simple as basically doing your work. It is very simple. Look, we sign laws in this country because we want to make things very simple. In the past, there was what you call the PBC Law 84 and 83. We changed it and passed a new Petroleum Act, which made it very simpler for people to come in, negotiate blocks and act. ACARE, the civil society have said that ACARE is not a company that is worth their salt. We should have abrogated that ACARE block a long time ago. They tried to sell it to us. The civil society fought it back, and now, finally, they've brought their plan of development. Ben, it is simple. There is two litigation, ENI Springfield. It's been going on for 3 years.
Right.
It's very simple for the government to settle. All these things are being laid on the back burner. And we think the simpler way to go and collect 4 billion taxes a year from Ghanaians that don't have money, which one is more easier? Oil on the ground, go pump it up, make money, or go take money from Ghanaians that don't have the money.
Do we have the logistics? Do we have the logistics to do this, or to get the entity that has the logistics? And if we're going to do, use the second option or the latter option, are we going to reap the benefits? You know about our royalties system and how little, the paltry sums we get.
It's not about royalties, it's about the lifting and the share of oil. I'm not even talking about royalties. If you're looking to get 600 billion a month, $600 million a month, it's not from royalties. It's about the share of oil. I'm talking about share of oil. Let me tell you the companies that have tried to work in Ghana in the last 6 years that we have asked, we've not allowed them to work in Ghana. Total have tried to work in Ghana. We've not allowed them to work in Ghana. ExxonMobil have tried to work in Ghana. We've not allowed them to work in Ghana. That's only a few of the major companies that are supposed to work in Ghana. ENI, like I said, is having litigation with Springfield. Okay. Now, these litigation can easily be settled by the president if he said the two parties in the room today. And the president has refused to settle that matter. Why, we don't know. And today, it is in court here and court there, and it's been going through the court for 3 years. Meanwhile, the president can settle this matter in 1 day.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is?
Because from what I heard, he thinks that it's a corporate matter and the two companies should deal with it. But it's not a corporate matter. It is a national matter because as a result, we are not getting the development that we are supposed to get. Springfield could have developed their block. ENI could have developed their block. But because of the issue of one block basically going into another, they need to basically settle that matter, which is Excellency Honorable Amawu gave a letter to give a certain percentages. So it's now become a national matter. It's no longer a corporate matter because it's affecting us in our oil space. Most companies are looking at that case and looking, okay, let's stay back. We're not going to invest in Ghana. Let's see how that ENI Springfield thing pans out. And as a result, it's also affected another company called Vitol. Vitol and ENI has a second block.
Vitol has been in the news for different reasons. But I just like to find out about an aspect of what you're saying. I agree with you. If we can reap these benefits, I mean, why the heck are we even at the IMF's doorstep? I agree. But to be fair to the president, if he were to get involved in some of these matters, and if things went awry, askew, it would be the same people who would bash him likely for trying to influence the process if things went wrong. You know how it is. If you try touching some of these things, and if you don't touch them well, and some things go, and you know how sometimes it is laced with a whole lot of influence peddling and all of that. Don't you think, in this instance, it is only right on the back of, I mean, look, Mr. President's name has been mentioned in so many ignominious lights. Recently, that Al Jazeera report also has something in there. Of course, the lawyer counsel to the president has come to debunk that. But my point is, with all of these things happening, if I were the president, I would probably be very cautious, very careful going into such arrangements or trying to influence such arrangements.
Ben, so
is that not fair?
You've probably not read our Petroleum Act. Our Petroleum Act gives a lot of powers to the minister. The minister's powers is from the president of the state.
I don't dispute that. So why not let the minister do the work?
So let me land. As a nation, our assets, our resources is entrusted to the president by the people.
True.
He is a custodian of our assets. True. So what these people are fighting over are Ghanaian assets. It doesn't belong to them. We only gave it to them on concession. So we gave Springfield a field on concession. We gave ENI a field on concession, okay? The custodian of those fields is Ghanaians entrusted to the president. If there's a dispute, the president, who's the custodian, can call the two parties together and settle that matter. They are going to the court of arbitration. Arbitration sits outside the country, okay? Now, even after arbitration, what tells you that the companies will do what they say they will do? Because arbitration is only enforced where? It's enforced in a country of competent jurisdiction. My point is that, look, to do unitization, there are two blocks that the government has given to two companies. The government said two companies should unitize. They are having challenges unitizing. The government, which is the president, should sit and say, look, I'm giving you guys these directives. It is my property. I gave it to you on concession. Do it this way, or I'll take the two of you out. It's as simple as that.
Why do you feel the sector minister, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, has not waded into that? I mean, you could say that by extension, and what you've mentioned from the Constitution, which actually entrusts our resources in his care, the president. But he has put someone there to do the work. And in any case, you would expect that if the president wanted certain things to be done, he could simply direct the minister, do this, and it would be done. Why do you think that is not?
Well, there have been several meetings. Look, there were several meetings when Honorable Ambewu was at the ministry. There have been several meetings now that Napo is at the ministry. It's gotten to the point where it's above him because he's chaired most of these meetings and there's no results. So Napo has tried. But I'm saying that, look at what ENI is. ENI is a national oil company. Okay, Springfield is an indigenous Ghanaian company. So we Ghanaians want a Ghanaian to have his share. Okay, the Italians will want the Italians to have their share. So really and truly, it is at the national level because you are dealing with a national oil company. Right. There is nothing that tells me that if the president of Ghana and the president of ENI, okay, or the president of Italy wants to resolve this matter, we will not resolve this matter. But it's a matter of everybody think that, oh, it is not my matter, let's move it along. And for now, Ghanaians are saddled with 4 billion Ghana cedis a year taxes.
Even as we talk money, let me quickly do this and then we can go. The ECG has disconnected the TTU and two others over a 3.3 million Ghana cedi debt. That's one angle. But there are two little bits I want you to look at, especially as we're talking money. Our currency exchange, the prices keep fluctuating. I remember last year, I think if you recall, I shared with you the story of a friend of mine who was taking a program from the London Dental Institute. She was paying £750 a month. And at a point, £750 moved from about 6,000 something to about 14,000 Ghana cedis. She just, completed that in March. But the currency exchange, a lot of people who go there who do a lot of buying and selling, it keeps fluctuating and it's problematic. And then I look at fuel prices. They were going down a bit and I was happy. The last time I bought fuel, it was 12 cedis, 90 something or so. It's shot up by a little bit to 13 cedis plus. I don't know whether diesel has fallen. I think it may have. How can we get more stability there? Just quick thoughts before we move to the next paper.
I keep telling people that our currency is a matter of demand and supply. It's quite these days. We've had, in the last couple of weeks, actually, we've had a bit of stability in our currency. As a result of that, the international prices of crude oil was also coming down, so petroleum prices were declining. A lot of people were saying that it's because of gold for oil that the prices were coming down. And we in the civil society space have said repeatedly that it was not because of gold for oil that prices were coming down. It was because of the stabilization of the city and stabilization of decline in the international oil market. Today, the price have gone up, but it's gone up marginally. It's not that much. Like you rightfully said, some went up, some came down. The fluctuation in your currency is just a demand and supply problem. It's not really something that we should worry about.
You say we shouldn't worry about it, but it's impacting business. It's impacting so many different aspects of our economy. So how can we not worry about it?
Well, in terms of marketers and traders always use what we call the forward sale. And I think in the last 3 months, there's been a bit of stability to be able to determine what your forward sale is. It's only when it's rampant going forward quickly that you cannot determine what the forward sale is. But now, in the last BOG auction to the BDCs, the forward sale was 11.45. So in a way, anybody doing transactions in the country will know that in the next 3 months, we are looking to hover around 11.45 to 12 cities. So that guides everybody who's doing a transaction to use that. The spot buy, which is what you see the daily basis, is not what the businesses use. What they use is a 3 months forward sale, which today is pegged around 11.45 to 12 cities to the dollar. So it seems to be a bit stable for now.
Let's look at a few stories from the Daily Guide newspaper. EC hosts Kumawu by-election. We've already looked at that. Candidates to pay 10,000 Ghana cedis. Latvia Foreign Minister calls on Akufo-Addo. I returned to Ghana for my husband, Aisha Huang, the famous Aisha Huang, or should I say infamous Aisha Huang, says so. IMF boss lobbies for Ghana. And check out this one. It's the story I'm going to do. Kenyan nabbed for smuggling 11.04 kilograms of cocaine. The suspect, Njeri Mary, pictured there. And the Narcotics Control Commission has arrested a Kenyan national at the Kotoka International Airport for smuggling 11.04 kilograms of cocaine worth $309,120. Now, the suspect, Njeri Mary, 35, was apprehended by NACOC officials during routine checks at the arrival hall after disembarking from a South African Airways flight from Nairobi to Accra via Johannesburg on Saturday, April 15, 2023. Now, Acting Director, Public Affairs Francis Opoku-Amwa, in a statement said a search of her luggage revealed packages of Cremora that contained the concealed drugs. A preliminary questioning revealed that she had confirmed possession of the consignment in her luggage, and she was later arrested for further investigation. I mean, when you look at videos of it, she's cold as ice, cool, calm, collected. It was almost like some sort of movie. I hope, though, that with the cocaine that has been seized, the contraband will be dealt with according to the law. We know of things that have happened before in this country. But that's the first issue I'd like you to look at. But let me just rope in these matters so we can wrap the conversation, Kojo. The Finder, IGP unveils 2 major election security interventions. Chieftaincy Minister Boku Chiefs explore avenues for lasting peace. And Ghana Armed Forces seizes over 20,000 pieces of illegal explosives in Takwa. This is a story we did yesterday. I just want to look at the one on page 9, and then I'll give you the opportunity to come in. So the Ghana Police Service has established an election security secretariat to work with all political parties and other stakeholders to enhance the management of security for all elections in the country. This is a complete departure from the old order where an election security task force was put together just a month before the general elections. Since its creation over a year ago, the Police Election Security Secretariat has worked with the various political parties in their respective internal political parties, in their respective internal elections, from the polling station through the constituency to the national executive elections. Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Akufu-Dampare, disclosed this during a meeting with the MPP and the NDC over recent happenings on the political front. And then there's that Chieftaincy Minister Boku Chiefs explore avenues for lasting peace. Any quick reactions to these stories?
Yes, the one on the Kenyan coming in with the 11.04 kilos of cocaine. Yes. Look, for me, I would have thought if they want to conduct a good, intelligent work, they should have just let him pass.
Let her pass.
Let her pass, because that's what they do in the UK.
Then go to the source, right?
When they realize that you are coming in with such an amount, and they would pretend they've not seen it, let you pass, but tell you. And then monitor you along the line and arrest the value chain. Because now you've arrested her, you don't...
Right.
Because it's not something that's new. Remember, we used to have a very rampant drug situation in this country. And for some reason, it's not gone away, but it's gone underground. Okay? It's still ongoing.
In as much as I agree with you wholly, that is what you would see sometimes in CSI and all of that. But you see, in our system, you could even tail this person and you could lose the person at a point. I mean, just hold for me. Our system is that porous. We don't have all of these CCTV outfits and all of that. They could attempt that and lose the person altogether.
No, you're not going to lose the person. The people you are asking to go tell her will go connive with her and collect their share of the money. That's what's going to happen. It's not they lose her. How did you lose somebody in Ghana? You can easily see who's
what you're saying could happen, but you could also lose her, and then you know what they say: a bird in hand is worth two in the bush.
Bear in mind, at the airport, she's going to be arrived. She's going to be welcomed by somebody. Somebody's going to come and receive her, right? She's going to go to the cup.
I don't know about that in this instance because it doesn't even appear there's anyone else mentioned who was complicit.
Well, that's the point, because she was arrested at the arrival hall. My point is, if they are serious, because there's no way she's going to tell you. Maybe they can do their investigation to find the other culprits in the country. But for me, what I thought should have happened was let her go, tail her, and arrest the value chain. Because that is the important. There are people, and this is not a one-off. You find out that these people have been, and even on that flight, she was the one that was arrested. I can tell you there were probably 3 or 4 people that went through.
Okay, that's an interesting assertion. Right.
No, mostly none of them always travel by themselves. There's always 3 or 4 people that travel with them, and when one is arrested, the rest will go through. And these are things that we have seen in the past. So what I'm saying is that what they should have done, but it's good they've arrested her, but the other way I thought they should have done, let her go through and just basically stake out and arrest the value chain. But then let's go on to the issue of the EC Kumawu thing. Have we dealt with that?
We had already dealt with that earlier, but if you want to do it briefly, some 15 seconds.
There's an issue on that one. There's an issue on that one where it comes up to say that there is somebody that is not eligible because of dual citizenship or something like that. So I think there were 8 people that were vetted, and 2 people have not been able to go through because I think that one is still pending. And then we've seen the marvelous job that my brother Dubik is doing at ECG by disconnecting everybody that is owing them, which is a good thing. And then I think for once, we've seen an ECG MD who is prepared to basically go to the front line and collect what is due ECG.
Interesting stuff, Kojo. We're grateful that you took the time to join us. The final story, Economy Times, job availability declined by 7.9% from January to February 2023. Kojo Poku, we're grateful that you've taken the time to join us this morning.
My only question to that story is that how did they calculate that decline in jobs? That's my only question. How did they measure that?
I wish I could give you details of the story, but our time is up. So maybe we'll have to have this conversation off air. But Kojo Poku, we're grateful. Were you saying something, Kojo?
No, I said I'm grateful too. When I come back from the Upper East, I'll come and say hi to you.
Thank you so much. Bring me something from the Upper East. I nearly said something. I nearly said something specific, but I'll not say it. I'll not be tempted. I'll reach out to you after we're done. Kojo Poku is an energy analyst. He joined us for the conversation. I did ask some of you to send your thoughts about Ghana, how you feel. Isa Asimeu says, I am hopeless. I feel disappointed by the leaders of this country. Joel Sebiam says, my family and culture make me proud as a Ghanaian. I'm a Mampusi and I love my culture and my family, and I'm proud I am Ghanaian. Do we have any others coming through? What is Nana Kwame saying? I am proud to be Ghanaian because of our hospitality, our rich culture, and the love we exhibit towards one another. All right, so those are a few quick comments. I requested them. I had to read them. Before we wrap, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us to bring you this segment. They're offering free prostate screening if you're a man and free female fertility screening if you're a woman. Where can you locate them? Here in Accra, Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi, Kronumabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. Takrade Anaji State Tema Community 22. Techiman Hanswa and Esiama Enzima. Their call lines are 0244 867 068. You could also reach out to them on 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. As we go into sports, I cannot but say a word of prayer for the Gunners, fans of Arsenal Football Club. You can only feel the sort of pressure, anxiety on them right now. Sports is up next.
course, now on the AM show with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullah, and we start with athletics. Team Ghana is getting ready to participate in the Lusaka Junior Athletics Championships. Ghana is expected to present about 12 athletes for the event that will be happening between April 29 and May 3. Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Athletics Association, which has been rebranded Ghana Athletics, Bao Hussein, says that he and his team are working to put together the athletes so that they can come for at least 2 weeks before the event starts on April 29.
The performance was so great. The organization was good. The French people were so happy that we were able to organize the first edition of these championships. In all, it was just good. It was good. We also had a very good performance by one athlete who does the boys 800 meters.
Okay.
He did a very fantastic time of 1.51.67 seconds.
That's incredible.
I can't remember that. Yeah, I can't remember the last time a senior Ghanaian athlete even had that time, apart from Lansah. After the Kumasi program, we did a very careful selection into this Tamale championship. And even though we thought we have sealed everything, but we saw the young guy that are early indicated about the 800 meters, which ran very, very well, 151. So the team is good. I'm just hoping and pray that we shouldn't have injury. We should give them at least 1 week campaign preparation, either in Cape Coast or in Kumasi, so that when they go to the Lusaka, let me add that we are so grateful to the National Sports Authority Director General, Professor Peter Chumesi, who has agreed to lead the Ghana contingent to the Lusaka Championship. So you realize that the team is building up. Once we have the Director General leading us, we cannot leave anything unattended to. We have to perform so well to get at least a couple of gold medals from Lusaka.
We are barely left with 12 days to the championship in Lusaka. Any preparatory plan in place for these athletes? You know it, as a former athlete, even a week off your training schedule can take a chunk of time away from you.
Not even a week, a couple of days. A couple of days can take it off the program. Yes, I was just talking to the Kumasi director this morning.
Okay.
How we are going to have a place in Kumasi for them to camp.
Okay.
So by today, tomorrow, we'll call them to come. At least if they have a week camping, that will also help. And we'll do whatever we can within our power, together with the sports authority, to camp these young athletes, at least for a week before the soccer game. So definitely we have to give them the best preparation we can. They have 2 good competitions, that is good, but we need just to polish them up for them to leave the shores of Ghana. And I have very good hopes that these athletes will come home with medals.
From athletics, let's do boxing now. And over the weekend, Ghanaian boxer Seth Jima, affectionately called Freezy McBones, dominated headlines after his post-bout emotional rant, where he spoke about his journey from zero to become a professional boxer. He spoke to us on Sports Today on a Monday, and he said that before venturing into boxing, many people had questioned his decision to become a boxer, and then they had asked him to go back to the kitchen instead of fighting.
It wasn't a bit easy. It was a tough time because obviously we have a lot of great boxers in UK, and as a village boy, traveled all the way from Ghana, came here at the age of to start boxing at the age of 27. It's very late, you know. A lot of criticize came up, a lot of people pushing me up. Why do you need to start boxing? If you get injured, who's going to look after you? At that time, I was in the amateur. There is no income. There is nothing coming up. You know, people like, you need to stay focused and keep doing your cleaning job, you know. So there was a whole lot, but I never let myself down. I keep working hard. I keep working toward on my dream. I keep, pushing myself up, and until it happened. And I remember one of my video went viral, and 50 Cent posted the video, Mayweather posted, and that is where I got interview from The Sun and Sky News talking about the next British Mike Tyson. And I mean, it was like, wow, dreams come true. Yeah, when I was in Ghana, like I went to school there is a vocational school called Krobia Asante Technical Vocational Institute in Asokore, and I was doing a BC, building construction. So anytime we go to vocational, I bought a shovel and chasing Macy to give me a job to do concrete and stuff like that. So that was my job. I mean, begging people to have a job, you know. And sometimes they say, oh, you look skinny, can you do the job? And when I have the opportunity, I don't pray. I really work hard. And the next day they call me again. You know, that is my job I was doing there until I've got opportunity to came here. And when I came here, as you can see some of the video, I was doing kitchen porter.
Yeah.
You know, I was washing pretties, like, obviously, that was my job until one day I worked so hard and I got opportunity to work in the kitchen. One of the chefs did not turn up, so the head chef called me to come and replace him. And he looked the way I was feeling so comfortable and so confident doing the kitchen job. He was like, wow, do you want to wear white? I said, yeah, why not? And he gave me the opportunity working as a chef, and I became a Ghanaian chef, and now I'm a sous chef. You know, that is where I get it from there. And now, through chef, I have my own side of hustler, which is a plantain chips, freezy food going on as well.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
I can imagine that. So many people have said you are the next British Mike Tyson. Do you think you are, or you want to create your own path as freezing Mike Bones and not any British Mike Tyson?
Yeah, one thing about me is that I always do me. I don't look up to someone, but I like Mike Tyson. I watch Mike Tyson. I love the way he beat people, knock people out, and the way he fight in the ring. That is the thing I can't take it out from me. I always watch Mike Tyson. So as you can see, some of my fight, anytime I jump in the ring and I bite my gum up, I'm straight to work on my peekaboo, which is Mike Tyson style, you know, but I always do me. I always look up to me. I always want to be the best. I wouldn't want to do more and more. The fight I had 2 days ago, I want to have more better than that. That is my dream.
His goal is to be better than what he did on Saturday when he came up against Daryl Sharp in their contest. Let's do football, and General Secretary of the Ghana Football Association, Prosper Harrison-Addo, says one of the core things the Ghana Football Association wants to do this year is to have the Black Meteors qualify for the Paris Olympic Games, which will happen in 2024. Ghana has not participated in an Olympic competition since 2004, and the football governing body has made it a priority to have Ibrahim Tanko and his boys participate in the next Olympic Games.
That is the quest. The quest is to qualify to the Olympics game, and so you see that the technical team, the FA and everybody is geared up in terms of the preparations to ensure that we present a good team, we give ourselves good preparations, and be in the position to compete with the rest of Africa in terms of the other teams that will come. 3 slots are available, and then one, let's say 50-50 slot. We want to take one of the 3 slots, and so we must be ready. And like I said, immediately we qualified in Kumasi, the plans set off, and so the coaches know of this. They are monitoring the players. We are working very hard so that the players they will bring forward for us to get for the tournament, we would be able, through our engagement with their clubs, be able to get them so that they will have the best of preparations. But this is an area that we have some of our best talents. If you look at the Blasters, you look at the age level, the average age level, you see that some of the players qualified to also play in the U23. So we are very hopeful, and we want to qualify, and I think that we've given ourselves an opportunity, and we will take it.
That's your sports for now. We do have more sports stories on my joyonline.com. I was told to focus on my cleaning job. Viral Ghanaian boxing sensation, that is Seth Jima. And you heard him a couple of minutes ago when we started this segment. We appreciate your company. Continue to enjoy the rest of the program.
Welcome back on the AM show, and we focus on the produce buying company and their woes, so to speak. Over the last 5 years, the market share has slipped from 30.88% to just about 8%. But how did we get here? How did we get to the point where the payment of staff salaries has become a problem? How did we get to the point where tons of cocoa beans are stuck in farms and produce clerks are engaged in double trading to survive? Well, that's the latest that we've got from this development, and we're joined by our guests. Atta Mudasiru is a production clerk at the PBC Limited. We also have Fifi Boafo, he's public affairs manager at Cocoa Board, and of course, Kwete Nate, our own investigative journalist here with Joy News. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you, for those of you who are on board. Hello. I think you would have to unmute, sir. Right. All right. Okay, so we have Mr. Boafo joining the conversation. He is public affairs manager with Cocoa Board. Let's start from how exactly we got to this point. It's been pretty curious the way things have developed up to this point over the last 5 years. What would you say has happened over this period?
Well, my understanding of the situation is that since 2013, the company has been struggling, and the struggles stem from the fact that the kind of capital they've used in financing the activity has, in an extent, brought some challenges to them, because you realize that the financing cost has been a problem for PBC. I am not at PBC, so it will be difficult for me to have the full details and understanding of the situation. But the information we have available is that if you consider what the situation they find themselves in and the information available, it means that something has not gone right, and that is the more reason why they find themselves in this situation.
That is quite a situation. We've now been joined by Kwete Nate. I want him to set the tone for the conversation we're about to have. I want him to give us some background to what exactly has happened that has culminated in this. I wanted to start with him even before I get to you. So, Mr. Boafo, just hold for me and let's trace it. Now, I'm sure you've seen that latest Hotline documentary. Then we'll get proper reactions to it. But Kwete, a very good morning to you, and more power to your elbow on the work you've been doing. Hello, Kwete.
Hello, Ben.
Good to have you join the conversation this morning. I was just saluting you for the yeoman's job that you've been doing. But tell me, what exactly led us down this rabbit hole, if you like, checking out the produce buying company, and what did you find when you went down that hole to check what?
Well, Ben, so what led us down to that hole, I will not be able to categorically say. But when we began hearing reports, when we began reviewing their documents, it became clear there was something to investigate, because our concern was that this was Ghana's biggest indigenous cocoa buying company, and there was the need to highlight what was happening there. As at the time we set out to investigate, staff salaries were in arrears for 3 months. National service intake had been suspended. Welfare loans were not being paid, even though staff had applied. We had also cited a letter which had been written by the former CEO, serving notice that they wanted to restructure PBC, including downsizing, because of the financial constraints they find themselves in. So when we went on the ground, the picture was no different from what the report that we had gotten, and clearly some of the depot clerks and district managers we spoke to stated what the challenges were. They were alarmed that their market share was falling. However, they weren't getting the needed money to buy cocoa, and the site last year, for instance, the light crop season, they weren't able to buy cocoa. Even in November, when they got money from PBC headquarters, it was 5 weeks into the cocoa season, where their competitors had bought a chunk of cocoa, from the farm. So, Ben, that was the situation we found when we went to the ground.
PBC is concerned. Just 5 years ago, it stood at around 30.88%. Now it has fallen to a paltry 8%. What do they have to share with you on that?
So when I spoke to management, the concern they raised was the fact that it's all about money issues. Depending on the time they get the money, that's when they buy the cocoa. And at some point in time, the banks weren't lending to them. So what they did was they usually wait for Cocoa Board. Once Cocoa Board provides the money, that's when they also disperse it to the purchasing clerks and then district managers and then the depot clerks to buy cocoa. But what is interesting has to do with the whistleblower who brought this issue up. His point was that once PBC begins, buying cocoa at a single-digit market share, then the alarm bells have ticked. And for me, that was the whole point of this threat, to raise or bring to the fore the plight of PBC so that the immediate action will be taken. But this is a company that employs 740 staff, and its commissioning clerks are in the range of 15,000. And should PBC collapse, you can imagine the burden it will place on many families and breadwinners.
And just my final point, touching on salaries and staff, 740 of them, and all of that. For those you interacted with, in terms of staff salaries not being paid, how exactly did they feel? What was their reality? If you could share a little bit of that with us. Hello, Kwete. Kwete, can you hear me? Hello, Kwete. It appears we've lost Kwete Nate, but thank you very much, Kwete, for joining the conversation. He's an investigative journalist with JoyNews, and he put together this latest work on the produce buying company. I'll come to you again, Mr. Boafo, if you're still with us, and I can see you now. What do you feel? You were sharing with me how it had all happened, but on the back of some of the basics we've been hearing, 740 staff, salary payments are in arrears, the clerks are engaging in all sorts of double dealings and all of that. How long have you been at post, if I may ask, as public affairs manager?
Well, I've worked as a public affairs manager for about 3 years.
3 years now. Within that period, what would you say has been the health of the produce buying company within that period? Has it deteriorated any?
Well, as a public affairs manager for Cocoa Board, not for PBC, but obviously, yes, prior to working as a public affairs manager, I've worked as the chief executive officer. So yes, I get to know what is happening in some of these companies. As I indicated, the situation of PBC is one that has had a challenge they've been dealing with over the years. I think the period I've gotten to know things happening in PBC, they've had some challenges. Indeed, Cocoa Board had to intervene. Just as Kwete indicated, the major problem PBC have been facing has to do with raising finance for their activities. And the fact that they were struggling to do so, Cocoa Board, together with the Ministry of Finance and SEGA, had to come up with an arrangement that will ensure that they are able to raise capital for their business. And also, another part of that arrangement was that instead of going to the bank to raise a guarantee before Cocoa Board gives them money to do business, we have a special arrangement that did not require that they go to the bank to raise a guarantee, because by doing so comes at a cost to PBC. So we are able to take up that cost and then allow them to operate at not such a high cost as they would have if they were to go to the bank to raise a guarantee. Of course, going to the bank has also been a challenge for them because of their situation. But yes, PBC has had its own challenge, but the point is there's a need for us to help them get out of the situation, and that's exactly what we're working on.
So in other words, they've also struggled with liquidity, and you're trying to stem the tide of that situation. But how if that support were not to have come in the interim, could it have been disastrous for the PBC? Because it is obvious then that they have liquidity challenges, and knowing the market to be what it will be, or what it is currently, as far as even supporting agric is concerned, it's quite a problem. So I'm just looking at this scenario where if Cocoa Board hadn't intervened, if you're not triggering some of what you're doing now, what would be looking at as far as the PBC is concerned?
Well, if you are in business and then you need finance to run the business and the finances are not coming in, obviously the effects will be huge. So yes, the anticipation is that, but for the intervention, the situation of PBC would have been worse. However, we are at a stage where there's the need for us to intervene, because we believe that even though we have about 65 license buying companies, PBC is one of the key license buying companies we do business with. So if there's any reason for us to intervene and ensure that PBC is able to stay and work, then the board will be prepared to do so, and that's precisely what we are working on.
Let me bring in Vivian Bwedi. She is Deputy CEO at the PBC. Vivian, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us on the AM show.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure having you join the conversation. We have known the PBC, the produce buying company, over the years to be one of our recognized, most prestigious brands. We now hear that over the last 5 years, your fortunes have been dwindling, and that in fact your market share has fallen from 30.88% to a paltry 8%. What is happening at the PBC?
Thank you, and good morning to your listeners. Yes, PBC's fortune started dwindling way before the 5 years that we are all talking about, that before 2016. PBC has been without working capital from its inception. So PBC basically relied on Cocoa Board, seed fund, and loans overdraft from the financial sector to be able to augment its operations and being able to operate over the years.
Quick intervention. You say since its inception. When specifically are you speaking of?
Okay, PBC, the shares of PBC was floated in 2000.
Okay.
So that was when PBC became a limited liability company and was also put on the Ghana Stock Exchange.
All right.
So from that time onwards, we've always depended, even before then, we depended on Cocoa Board because we're part of Cocoa Board. And after that, when we were weaned off, we then depended on Cocoa Board and loans overdrafts from the financial sector to be able to operate effectively. As time had went by, the finance costs from these operations were becoming higher. And then one thing we all have to understand is that PBC depends on the margins we receive from hauling and purchasing of cocoa. And these margins you get from Cocoa Board. So if the operation cost is not up to the margin, definitely there will be issues. And when you look, and anyone can go onto our website, we have all our accounts, because we are listed, we try to be as open as possible. All the accounts are there. From 2017, we had loss as high as 172, that's the 2016-2017, 172 million loss. And the loss started in 2013, around 8 million, then it just kept on going up. In 2019, just as Fifi was saying, that was when Cocoa Board intervened, and then we decided to solely rely on Cocoa Board seed fund for our operations because the cost of finance was quite high. And we couldn't also go to the bank to borrow because previous borrowings had not been paid. As of 2019 September, we owed 715 million Ghana cedis to banks, to Cocoa Board, to staff, to statutory bodies in Ghana. And this is not record that has been hidden. All our correspondence to all our stakeholders have this data and facts. And you could cross-check this with SIGA, with Cocoa Board, and with the Ministry of Finance. So it was at that point that the banks were around 495 million. And they were magnanimous. We did a restructuring. So we had to sit back and look at the financial restructuring of the company. So that's how Cocoa Board stepped in to be the sole provider of seed funds for PBC to operate. So that is why the narrative has been that we have to wait for Cocoa Board seed fund to be able to, because we cannot go to the bank to borrow again.
You cannot go to the bank to borrow as a PBC or as an entity. You have to wait on Cocoa Board. Cocoa Board has also had its woes within the last few years. In fact, we've spoken about the cocoa bonds and other issues that have come up. I'm not saying that necessarily that is an issue, but we know that they also bedeviled with their own worries. But I'm just wondering, when I go to your website, I look, you speak about the fact that these ailments started since, in fact, before even 2016. You go as far back as 2000 when the PBC was listed on the stock exchange. But I'm looking at your progression and some of what you tout. You say that you have over, the years received recognition. You've been in the Ghana Club 100. At a point, you were 89th, in fact, and you moved to number one in 2010. So 89th position in 2008, number one in 2010.
Exactly.
You successfully retained that position in 2011, making your entity one of the few companies in Ghana to retain this position in succession for a number of years. When I look at all of these feats, the fact that you are judged leader in the agric and agribusiness sector by the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, the GIPC, in 2012, you received international awards. You were still grappling with the same situation around the time, right? It was the same situation. So what exactly has changed now that is resulting in what we are seeing? That's what I find curious.
Okay. So I wouldn't say we were in a different time period and were operating differently. At that time, you could go to the bank, borrow, and then start the pre-season purchases. Even though cocoa is officially open in October, every one of us here knows that we normally do a pre-seasonal activities before the start of the season. And then once it is October, then we all start the season, we start the holiday and all that. So you could go to the bank, do all the pre-seasonal activities that you have to do, get your stuff ready for the season so that as soon as the season picks up, you're able to roll along. However, this time around, we would have to wait for the syndicated loans to come in around that time, just as I indicated, PBC could not borrow on the strength of its balance sheet because from at a point, then our liabilities were exceeding our capital. So it was difficult to go to the financial sector to borrow. Even though we're doing it, we were getting a high cost. When you look at the finances, I just want us to limit ourselves to 2017 and 10. Our net finance expense in 2017 was 150 million. Meanwhile, the gross profit for that period was 180 million. So clearly, it tells you that whatever operations you are running, you will definitely run into a loss. And persistent loss over time has brought us to where we are today. That is why when it got to a point, we just have to put a stop to the borrowing and then decide that Cocoa Board has a cheaper source of finance, and this is open to all LBCs. However, other LBCs will have to get guarantee, just as Fifi was explaining. But for PBC, the Ministry of Finance and the other stakeholders, FIGA had to come in to give us a special dispensation to be able to access Cocoa Board Seed Fund. If you check your records, you realize that Cocoa Board Seed Fund doesn't drop 1st October. It will normally take some time for it to go through some processes before we are given the fund. But I might say that once the funds are in, Cocoa Board gives us a portion of it for us to go to the market, buy the produce, and deliver to them, and then we start our operation from whenever we receive the fund. So that is the difference between this period and that period. And
would you say, briefly, would you say that maybe in light of what we know now, maybe we should try to use the mechanisms that were available then? I know you've said that on the back of your balance sheet, you can't go to the banks, but should we revert, maybe, if that system worked, you know what they say, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Okay, so aside borrowing, you also have to look at the finance cost that comes to it, that comes along with it. Now, we could still maintain this same system and, however, have an improved version of what we are doing now to give us better results than what we have now. Because we rely solely on Cocoa Board Seed Fund, anytime there are hitches or there are issues, definitely would also run into cash flow problems. And I believe that is what happened last year, because if you check the previous year, 2019-2020, we were able to pay our salaries throughout the whole year. It was only in 2022 that we had the 3-month gap because we were expecting a certain amount from Cocoa Board. We didn't get that amount from Cocoa Board. So we were not able to do the sort of operations we intended to do. So it's not, we could have an improved system of what we are having now, and the system would still work. However, PBC itself has to work on itself. So it's not just looking at the financial restructuring. We also have to look at the operational restructuring of the company. And that is what management is currently tackling now, how to get the turnaround faster, be able to go back to Cocoa Board and get the seed fund and go back to the market. And that is what we are working on. We also have to look at the staff side of it. So PBC is currently going through some phase of restructuring to be able to stay profitable and be able to reverse the negative trend on our balance sheet and so resume our normal operation.
Right before I let you hold, so I bring in Mr. Boafo, do you feel it is apt, do you feel it is needed, maybe as part of the cure, to wean your entity off dependency on Cocoa Board? Is it a possibility? Is it something that we should even be contemplating? What do you think, Madam Wedi?
Just as I indicated earlier, Cocoa Board Seed Fund is the cheapest source of funds every LBC would want to have. And because out there now, at least the minimal interest rate you could get is about 36-38% now. But with Cocoa Board, so if you're able to do a perfect blend, 80% of your financing comes from Cocoa Board, maybe 20% from external sources, then you will be able to at least achieve some level of profitability. The LBC market is, we have a cap, so you only rely on the margins you get per ton. So all the operations that have to go on to get that ton have to come from that margin. So we are normally, I say, cost sensitive in the LBC space, because you need to ensure that whatever loans or whatever facility you are getting, the best working capital we would have been equity. For the shareholders to come together and say, now we want to give, or some strategic investor brings in equity, that would have been the perfect cure for our issues. But we know the problems when it comes to equity raising in Ghana. It will take a while. It's not immediate. So that is why we are trying to put the company well, reshape the company to be able to attract such investors. Now, winning totally off from Cocoa Board, that is, when you are winning us from Cocoa Board, then you are giving us a cheaper version of sort of finance, and that could work. But so that happens, and if we are still operating in the same financial space as every other Ghanaian who is going to borrow, or any other company that is going to borrow, it will be very difficult to operate.
Vivian, hold for me, because when I come back to you, I would also like to find out how the reshaping is going and what you're going to do in terms of raising equity. But let me come back to Fifi. We know that as COCOBOD, you have your own demons to fight. But this dependency by the PBC on your entity, especially as the syndicated loan, often doesn't come in. Sometimes it is not as timely as we would want it. Do you think, progressively, moving forward, we should do something about that situation? Does it put any pressure on you at all as COCOBOD?
And as I indicated, PBC is a very important LBC to us. So any effort to help PBC stabilize is one we are very much concerned and prepared to do. So yes, we are looking at our own financial situation and how best to position ourselves such that we are able to deal with our responsibilities. Seed fund is one of the things we do or give out to support the LBCs and their operations. So in as much as we continue to give seed funds to LBCs, PBC will surely have that priority as we help in stabilizing the organization. The wish would have been that PBC will have other means of supporting the activities, because for a license buying company, the expectation is that the license buying company will be able to raise some finances aside COCOBOD. But in the situation they find themselves, of course, we also acknowledge that that is a challenge they have. And what is important for us to do at this point is to ensure that PBC stays afloat and is able to perform its responsibilities.
How do you feel COCOBOD can help on that journey in terms of stabilizing? Look, as a country, we're looking at debt sustainability. The PBC is saying we can't even go to the banks because our balance sheets are not balancing. So we need this assistance as of this point in time. But as a mother body, so to speak, as COCOBOD, how do you think moving forward you can aid them? If they could go to the banks, and if the banks were giving them loans or concessions at a certain rate, they obviously wouldn't come down to your doorstep to bother you. What are the means, the mechanisms that the COCOBOD is contemplating in that regard?
Well, just as Vivian indicated, even in the situation where PBC will be able to go to the banks, they will surely prefer to come for the seed funds, because that is a cheaper source of financing. Because if you compare what they get, the interest rates they have to pay to the banks, and then how much they have to pay for securing the seed fund is a cheaper source of financing for them as a business. And that's what we are doing for them. For us as COCOBOD, it is our wish to have PBC continue operating. So we shall continue giving them the seed funds. Of course, the timeliness of it, we are also looking at our structure to see how best we are able to bring in the money early enough for our operations, and of course the operations of companies that rely on us. So when we are able to bring in the money early enough, then we'll be able to also give PBC money early enough for them to also start the season just like their competitors are doing. One of the things we need to also appreciate is that despite the financial challenges of PBC, the competitiveness of the industry now is also one thing that is affecting PBC. You realize that PBC, when it started, enjoyed some monopoly. Today, that's not the situation. We have about 65 license buying companies operating within the space. So if we are looking at the situation as it used to be some years ago, and say that because the PBC share has dropped, it is as a result of incompetence or as a result of bad management, that cannot be the exclusive reason why PBC finds itself in this situation, because now there is competition. Of course, some of the companies they are competing with are companies that have
funding outside Ghana, and then it's a cheaper source of funding. So it also aids such companies to be able to compete better and stronger. The first 3 companies that are performing within the space now, the first 2 of them are foreign-based companies. Then you have PBC. So clearly, the challenge PBC face is one that requires support, and that's exactly what we are doing, ensuring that they have the finances such that they will be able to also operate. Because in terms of structures, PBC has a very good system out there where they have direct contact and access, and of course built reputation over the years with the farmers. So PBC, I'm sure, will continue to operate, and the Cocoa Board, as we also consider our financial structure, will continue to support PBC in this regard.
But I'm a bit curious, though, this entire syndicated loan saga, some have said, or the facility, some have said they do not understand why we even have to do this year on year. It's like Ghana having a budget deficit every year and having to reach out to other organizations to support our national budget. This rut, where we have to wait for the syndicated loan, obviously it has a trickle-down effect. It impacts the PBC and others, and it hobbles our work generally. How do we break that rut? Is that something Cocoa Board is taking a look at? Because year on year, we've seen that sometimes there are delays, it leads to problems, yet every year, in terms of making the purchases, in terms of the produce and the selling and all of that, we have certain windows, we have a plan. Is it not possible to break that rut of a syndicated loan?
So Ben, let me explain so that you get an understanding of what the syndication is about. The syndication is not a loan to finance a shortfall in our budget.
No, I'm not talking of a shortfall. If I am not mistaken, you get it in advance so that when the production occurs, then you pay back. But I'm saying that year on year, I mean from a previous year, if you were to make in excess of what you were expecting, for example, what is the process so that eventually we wean ourselves of any syndicated facility so that we don't even need anyone to now come in, intervene until we are ready, we have made sales or we have bought and all of that? That's what I mean. I was only referring to the national budget from a different end. Okay,
I get it now. So the syndication, we've done the syndication for about 30 years, and doing one thing for 30 years require that you have a relook at that situation. Yes, there's some conversation ongoing within Cocoa Board corridors to find different means of financing the crop. We are not there yet, but I know we have advanced the conversation to a certain level where management and the board are of the view that there's a need for us to find different means of addressing the situation. But bear in mind, the syndication has also served us as Cocoa Board and as Ghana very well, in the sense that if you consider around November, December, where people are expecting that we'll have a challenge with our city because a lot of people are importing and then you require more dollars, that's when you have the syndication money coming in and is able to help shore up the city. So yes, the syndication plays its role. Apart from that, it also... Are you saying, just quickly, my apologies for the intervention. Are you saying that we cannot get past this intervention? No, I made a point before I got to that point. The point I made earlier was that there's conversation ongoing, and the conversation is aimed at moving away from the 30-year system we've run, which is relying on the syndication. So yes, that conversation has been ongoing. I was only making the point that the syndication has also played a certain role where it has supported Cocoa Board and how we finance their activities. Because, for example, if you look at a system where we go to Bank of Ghana to raise cocoa bonds, cocoa bills, for example, cocoa bills come with a high interest rate. If you just oppose it with how much you pay for financing the syndication is way less as if you compare to the cocoa bills. So yes, the syndication has served us well, but we also realize that you cannot rely on one system forever, and there is the need for you to look at different means of addressing your challenges or your situation, and that conversation is ongoing. I see. Let me come back to you, Vivian. Do hold for me, Fifi. So
there's also this bit about 740 of your staff, and apparently some of them have not received their salaries in a while. What is the latest development on that? What can you share with us?
We are updated on salaries. We paid up to March.
You've paid?
We are updated when it comes to salary payment.
So up to what month have you paid?
March 2023.
Up to March?
Yes.
How long did it take before you could, resolve that? Because we heard for a while there have not been payments.
I think this point has been overstretched, if you may ask me. Yes. We're owing salaries.
I don't think for those staff who did not get there, especially in our economic situation, they felt it was being overstretched.
No, I'm talking about in the documentary, that point. Because we paid staff salaries in November. We paid the 3 months we were owing them in November, in the month of November. And since then, we've been updated till March. And you can call any staff and find out this information.
Okay. So at least the payments have been made. Right before I went to Mr. Boafo, you were talking about reshaping the company, that is the PBC. How much have you done in that regard and your equity challenges moving forward? Apart from depending on Cocoa Board, what is the plan?
Yeah, so we are currently engaging our stakeholders, our major shareholders. We've engaged them, we've been engaging them over the past years on how to get equity into PBC. In fact, that was part of the original plan when PBC was listed, was to first do the listment and then issue more shares for equity. But the additional issues of shares have never materialized. I think in 2016, 2017 or earlier, management at an IAGM proposed a rights issue, which the shareholders did not take, and therefore that could not materialize. And then, but currently we are in talks with our major shareholders on the equity bit of it. But before you could do anything, you first have to look internally to see how to reorganize yourself to be able to look, at least when you are selling the company, it should look attractive for anybody who would want to put or invest money into it. So that's why I indicated that we are doing the financial and operational restructuring of the company. In fact, we came from Cocoa Board, so most of the practice of Cocoa Board were inherited, were part of PBC's culture. And that is what we are trying to change, that we are now into business and we should be business focused and minded. So that is the essence of the restructuring I talked about to be able to do this. We've done extensive talks on the equity issues with our shareholders.
Just before I let go of you, Vivian, just very briefly, this one is on a lighter note. Is the PBC still in the Ghana Club 100? And what can we expect from the PBC in 2023?
PBC is not in the Club 100. And in 2023, yes, our initial projection was 170. We've revised it to 130 due to our late start of the season.
130 what?
130,000 metric tons.
Right.
Yes. We are looking forward to having consistent funding from Cocoa Board. The whole issue is getting the funding and getting it on time. That is the whole game changer. If you get it on time and you get the right funding, you'll be able to operate. This year, the cocoa sector, every year has its own peculiar challenges. Last year was the weather. This year, it's a different ballgame altogether. We are contending with our neighboring countries for the cocoa. So the competition is very, very keen. But thankfully, as we speak now, we still have funds on the field and our agents are actively on the market buying. So we are looking forward to a good season this year with the help of our stakeholders. And we pray that they continue to assist us so that we end this year successfully. Thank you very much.
Vivian, thank you so much for your time. Vivian Bwedi is Deputy CEO at the Produce Buying Company. Mr. Boafo, just hold for me. Let me bring in Atta Mudasiru, a production clerk at the PBC Shea Limited. Do we have Atta with us? Okay, so we'll get Atta on the line briefly and have an interaction with him. Mr. Boafo, so moving forward in 2023, it's obvious that the PBC has a plan. How is Cocoa Board going to help them actualize this plan to gain self-sufficiency and also ensure that the value chain is seamless, at least from their end?
Well, the plan PBC has indicated is one we are aligned with, and we are in constant engagement with them. Vivian, you spoke to, is always in touch with our finance team, trying to find means of addressing their challenges. So yes, we appreciate the situation they find themselves in. We are committed to helping them come out of their situation, and we shall continue showing commitment to that promise we made to them that will help them get out of the situation.
It's an interesting bit when I asked her about whether the PBC was still in the Ghana Club 100, and she, not happily, but smilingly said, no. I found that a bit, it pinched me a bit, because just a few years ago, they were number one. In fact, one of the few entities to have done it in succession, and now they can't even be found on the radar from 1 to 100. Well, Mr. Boafo, any maybe final comments on this matter? We'll also try to get Atta Mudasiru, production clerk at the PBC Share Limited. I don't know whether you can make the time with us and maybe listen to what he says. I see you shaking your head. Any final comments you would like to leave us with? We can still have the conversation with Atta when we have him on the line and maybe take it from there. What would be your parting shots for us?
Well, our parting shots are that, well, PBC is an important license buying company. PBC requires the support of all of us as a people. And for us as Ghana Cocoa Board, we shall continue to support PBC as they go through these challenging moments. It happens in business that businesses sometimes find themselves in difficult moments, but it doesn't mean that when such situations happen, we are supposed to just fold our arms and say that, well, it has happened and then it should end there. It is important for us as stakeholders to also come on board and ensure that we are able to save a very important company for the state, because out of the 65 license buying companies, PBC is the only one that is state-owned. The rest are private sector companies, foreign and local. And yes, it's important we say PBC, and then we shall surely do that. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mr. Boafo, for making the time to join us this morning. Fifi Boafo, Public Affairs Manager with Cocoa Board. We've heard from Vivian Bwedi, the Deputy CEO at the PBC. We now have joining the conversation Atta Mudasiru. He's a production clerk at the PBC Share Limited. Mr. Mudasiru, a very good morning to you, sir.
Thank you, boss.
It's good to have you join the conversation. What do you do exactly as a clerk at the PBC?
Yeah, my duty is to receive raw material as in shea nuts and then hexane, and then also provide control production process, and then also take records of finished products and as and when they leave the premises of the factory.
Okay. So as a clerk, how long have you been in this position, and what is it like? What has it been like over these years that you've been with the PBC?
Please come again.
I'm saying that as a clerk in this position, what has it been like over these last few years with the PBC? What is the routine and what has been happening in the PBC during this time?
Well, during this time, what we can say exactly is that we are out of production for some time now, about 2 years, or even more than that. And there are a number of issues that accounted for that kind of issue. And if you permit me, I will just list them for you, because we have grouped them into 3.
Right. Before you get to that, so when you say you are out of production, you're speaking specifically for the share end, not for the cocoa end, right?
Yes, for the shea nut factory.
All right. So now,
located at Bupe.
Right. So go ahead and tell us now what exactly has been happening and why you've been defunct, so to speak, for 2 years.
We, the staff here, we have been in the situation for a number of years now, and then as the issues were unfolding, we were trying to put them into groups, and then we have come up with 3 issues that have brought us in this condition. One of them is the lack of raw materials to run the factory. As a factory like this, we need raw material as the basic need. Then we are also lacking sustainable market because we have to produce. After the product, we have to sell before we are able to pay ourselves, and the market is not there. Then there is also lack of attention on the company by stakeholders. If I say stakeholders, PBC Share Limited didn't come up on its own. People put in their money, or organizations or government put in money to establish it. But if you build a company like that and you don't, pay attention to that to see how it is running, definitely this is where we find ourselves. So these are the three main areas that we have issues with the company. Other than that, the plant itself has no problem. If we get this, since the raw material and the market today, even the plant can run.
So the plant has no problem, but for 2 years, you've virtually not produced anything. That's what you've said, right?
Yes.
So you mentioned a lack of a ready market, a sustainable market.
Exactly, sustainable market.
Sustainable market. Because I was going to say that I know a lot of people dealing. In fact, I have a friend who goes up north, she even has women who harvest the share plant, process it, and then they get it and come and make their products here in Accra. So when you say sustainable market, what exactly do you mean? Because the market is out there, isn't it?
Well, though this is not, I shouldn't be speaking on this, but the little knowledge that I know about it is that the company is a very big company, and we work under Ghana prisons. So we have to produce, and then 70% of our production is exported, 30% is to be sold locally. So those who come to buy, they buy in, let me say, 1 ton, 2 tons, or even less than that, and all those. So those people, I don't know. They don't come to our company as it is rated. And then even if they come, how much can they buy for us to make something at the end of the month? That is it. We have to be selling voluminously. Because if you have a plant that has the capacity to process 120 tons of shea nuts a day, so you imagine the volume of butter that will be coming out. So if you don't have a market, that can take up to at least a month, you are able to sell 200 metric tons of butter, 120 metric tons of butter. Then it means that you can't make any headway. Even if you have the raw material, you will not be able to produce because you will be having a large market to sell that large volume. That's what is happening. And, we should also be looking for market, which as the current situation we find ourselves, even if you have to go and look for the market, you need resources to go and then look for the market. And where is that resource?
You also speak of a shortage of raw materials. How is that? Tie that into what you were telling me a short while ago.
That is the shea nut.
Yeah.
We used to have a lot of nuts all over. But now, with the absence of money, that is funds to buy the raw materials, we are unable to buy. Even as we speak now, we can't boast of buying even a bag of shea nuts. And then the season is even coming in. Again, the new season is just starting in 2 months' time. And that is the main thing. Even if we have market and we don't have this raw material, the shea nut to process, then it means that we can't do anything.
So what does that really mean? Are we falling back in terms of production, or what exactly is it? Is it that we don't have enough outgrowers? What is it?
No. PBC Share Limited per se, we don't have outgrowers. The market, we enter the market and then buy the available nuts.
I see.
But the time PBC Limited was buying the raw material for PBC Share Limited, that one I can't tell whether they were having outgrowers.
Okay.
Because there are times we used to get the raw material plain to the channel. We used to get them enough. So that one, as a junior staff, I can't be able to see whether they were having outgrowers. That one I can't tell. But when we stood on our own from April 2019, we entered the market openly and then buy.
So we've broached the subject of a lack of raw materials and a lack of a sustainable market. Now, you've also spoken about a lack of attention from the powers that be, government. From where you sit, I mean, there are shareholders. There's a shareholder system, I believe. But from where you sit, what would you like to see government or maybe even other establishments do to help your work, to aid your work? What do you want to see?
Like I said earlier, you see, the company, the factory itself, the plant itself has no major issues. So these are the major three things. But the two are very important at this moment, the market and the raw material. So if government can come to our aid and say, oh, PBC Share Limited will support you, like maybe working capital, to come on board again, so that you are able to produce. If you are able to produce, and then you have some other working capital to enter, and then look for the market and come, fine. And that's what we are looking for now. If we get government support, today, the company is good to go. So the major things that are drawing us back is the raw material in the market.
To wrap the conversation,
we appeal and we keep on appealing to the government and other stakeholders or other investors who can come to our aid so that the company will revamp. Because this is a company that is very large. We have the capacity, both storage and production capacity, or we have it, to be able to produce well. So we need a lot of raw materials so that the company can function to its full capacity. So we need serious investors or government coming in serious and take it upon itself that PBC Share Limited, I want to support it so that it will stand on its feet. And when we ask for, definitely foreign exchange and other things, we're benefiting from that. A very big company. But if nothing is done about it, then I'm sorry. The company is going down every day.
To wrap the conversation with you, Atta Mudasira, I'd like to find out, so basically you've been at post, but there's not been much to do as far as your outfit, your end of the PBC.
Not much, there is nothing to do.
Okay, not much, there's nothing to do.
Yes, let me add that. I don't know whether you will still come to that, but let me add that we are without salary since July 2020.
That was exactly what I was going to ask. So you've been at post, you are not doing anything, but has your salary been coming? So since you started, please go ahead.
Not at all. The salary is not coming. We haven't been.
Since when?
The last time we received salary was July 2022.
July 2022?
Yes, sir.
That was the last time you were paid?
Yes, that's the last month that we received salary.
How have you coped since that time? With inflation, with the cost of goods and services, how have you been able to keep body and soul together?
Those ones, we just say we leave it to God. Because we have been in the terrible moments of our life, as I'm telling you. We come to Bube here and see the workers in PBC Share Limited, and then those who have traveled to be doing something else, at least take care of their families. You see us, then you won't think that we have ever worked before. When they break, you have to quickly run out of the house before the children will start looking for you. Some of us, our children have dropped out of school. They can't go to school again because they are unable to do anything. Sometimes when they break, you even be thinking whether if God doesn't come to your aid, what the family will feed. Some of us have dependency. I myself, I take care of 2 old ladies. And then my brothers who have died and left their children under my care. Now when they break, they have to leave school and go for by day so that they will able to get something for their family. So look at what is happening. You enter Buffet Town, you will see the PBC workers. Some of them will go and then be digging foundations. Some of them will go and be digging manhole for toilets and other things, just to get something for the family. And it's not forthcoming. That's the situation we have found ourselves.
So it means some of your staff, some of your colleagues have some of them left, just moved on?
Yeah, some did.
So just to wrap on that point, because that's my final point, what would be your plea to the PBC as far as this is concerned? Because it is obvious you want to work, so you are able to earn your keep. But exactly. As it is now, you're not doing any work, and like you say, since July 2022, you've not been paid. What will be your final words to the PBC? I was just speaking to Vivian Bwedi, who is the Deputy CEO. I'm sure she's still watching. What will be your plea to the PBC?
Thank you for that opportunity. We have been looking for this opportunity for a very long time. We will want to appeal to PBC Limited because, look, when the company was established, it is PBC Limited. You know, they were providing the raw materials and everything for the company to run. At the end of the day, they will pay the salaries. So the nuts were all over. PBC Limited purchased a lot of nuts for the company. But the moment they withdraw, that one self, our managers told us that PBC Share Limited is now on its own. But we, the workers, we don't believe it. Though the PBC Share Limited is paying itself, the workers. But we don't believe it because there should be some document which is showing that we have been left on our own. And also, you know, there should be a lot of evidence indicating that we have been left on our own. But we don't see something like that. All we hear is that PBC Limited, we are no more under PBC Limited. But we think that if we are under PBC Limited, maybe it will be better, though they are also facing challenges, which I cannot talk too much about it. I don't know too much about it, but there are also problems. But since they are our parents, they know everything about the company, how it started and where it is going. At least when it happens like that way, they'll be able to do something to help us. Though we have been expecting help from them for a very long time now, which is not coming, but we are still appealing to them to come to our aid, at least to say something about us, whether truly we are still under them. And if not, and they still don't want to take us back, then we appeal to them that they should do the needful and then do the necessary documentation and then let us stand on our own. Because our managers have been telling us that whenever they go to source for loans to run the company, because PBC is attached to the company, they find it difficult. So all these issues. So if it is that PBC Limited is still attached to it and PBC Limited too is not helping us, where are we now? So we are appealing to PBC Limited to do something very important for us. And also to the government. We are appealing. PBC Share Limited is on its knees, and if nothing is done in the next year to come, the plant also may be down. And that would be a very huge cost to the country.
Thank you, Atta, for joining the conversation. We feel your pain, and I know it's quite a struggle, but we're grateful that you took the time to join us for this conversation this morning. Atta Mudasiru is a production clerk at the PBC Share Limited. There's the cocoa arm, of course, there's the share arm as well, and it appears they are in the grips, the throes of quite a bit of chaos there. For him, together with some of his colleagues, since July 2022, they have not received any payment. We also had Vivian Bwedi, Deputy CEO at the PBC, Fifi Boafo, Public Affairs Manager at Cocobot, and Kwete Nate, and our own investigative journalist here at JoyNews, joining the conversation. Stay with us, still to come. We're going to have that interaction with George Weafe about the spring meeting of the IMF. What's in it for Ghana? How far have we gone? More on that after the break.
Hello, good morning to you. Thank you so much for staying on the AM show. Just gone by, you heard my colleague Benjamin Akakpo discuss recent issues with the PBC company. Well, it's now time to talk about the big one, Ghana's IMF deal and our quest to secure that bailout. My colleague, assistant editor with Joy Business, George Weafe, has been in Washington, D.C. for us, and he's been monitoring events from day one till the meetings ended. And since our interaction with him, I don't know how you feel, but for many reactions we've seen, it's been quite a fluctuating one of hope, and then sometimes doubt, and then hope again. I don't know what signals he's speaking. George, What are you picking at the end of the IMF World Bank spring meetings?
Well, what I'm picking and what I want to basically focus on what the IMF officials are saying is some high level of optimism that in terms of Ghana's program, you have words being used like very soon, we are on course to get financing insurance. Ghana has taken tough decisions, and they think that what is just left is for that program to be secured. So in terms of, let's forget about what government is saying and focusing on what the IMF officials are saying and based on the engagement that we're having, they are quite optimistic.
And George, prior to these meetings, we know that our finance minister visited China, for example. So there's just been a lot of work happening in the background prior to the spring meetings. Was it the hope that at the end of the meetings, we would have received the assurances from our creditors in terms of our external debt restructuring? Are we leaving this, quote unquote, disappointed?
Well, Bernice, I mean, this is just that Ghana's program did coincide with the annual meetings. And if Ghana was not even having a program, the spring meetings is indeed the biggest gathering of all players who matter in the financial space. So forget about trying to put Ghana's program on hold. This spring meeting was going to be a very big one, and everybody was looking forward to see what would the fund be saying about the global economy. But for a lot of independent actors, I mean, when government first said that we'll be getting a program in March, and some would say that for those who matter and those who appreciate the workings of the fund or appreciate the work that Ghana has done so far, they knew that that March program would indeed be difficult. Fast forward and get these same independent actors, those who are following the work of the IMF, now that Ghana, and just quoting the African department head's word, choice of words, that to say that Ghana has met all the preconditions. Now, what is left is that is getting the creditors' assurance that they will subscribe to Ghana's program. So in terms of hearing all these things, and Bernice, I will still want to say that I want to put aside what government is saying, because government is a very a player in this, and some will say that, well, government want to see things that pleases them, but haven't engaged every person that matter in the IMF, Bernice. Listen, I have struggled very hard to pick any negative remark coming from the IMF, the directors, the technical persons, and I'm struggling to get any of that. What I get from them is that you guys are on track, you guys are taking all the measures that require, very tough measures, especially, Bernice, when it comes to the revenue measures. And these were things that they were thinking that Ghana would struggle to actually be able to sail through. Ghana has done that. And for them, they think that, listen, in terms of the laws, the measures being put in place to deal with the fiscal prudence and discipline and all the rest, Ghana has gotten all those things. And they think that, listen, the program, again, to choose their choice of words, very soon, Ghana is going to get that program.
And I mean, it was very clear and noticeable. I remember on one of my engagements with you, I spoke about the optimism shared, especially by the managing director of the fund. And a lot of people were wondering, what is behind all of this optimism and this seeming focus on Ghana, this what appeared to be a soft spot, and I want to choose my words carefully, a soft spot for Ghana. But for us here, the news that keeps trickling in has to do with what the IMF is saying, what government is saying, and on what government is saying, the latest has been on the reintroduction of pensioner funds in this whole scheme. But then we heard earlier that we were not going to do the domestic debt restructuring again. Can you just help us understand how these two work and how that conversation about the reintroduction of the pension fund came up?
And Bernice, again, I will say that for anybody who was behind the scenes following these discussions, it was just a matter of time that it will come up again. Because at Joy Business, we knew that government was trying to work out something. Again, choosing the choice of words of government. Their claim was that, I mean, this is not a second domestic debt exchange program, but it was an arrangement where it will ensure that government will still be able to meet the obligations to these pensioners in terms of when it comes to this whole domestic debt exchange program. So we knew that it will come up as in whether the pensioners, and I knew that there were some discussions going on with the institutional pension fund managers about what should be the way going. And I would say that that is because I'm choosing the words of those technical persons that are working on this. The claim was that government wants to find a way where they will still be able to meet the obligations due these pensioners. And that is why they were going this route. So I knew, at Joy Business, we knew that it was just a matter of time. I mean, putting, again, this question to the minister here several times, having an interview with him yesterday, he insists, and again, I'll say that I want to use the remark or the choice of words by government that this is not a second round of the domestic debt exchange program. But he claims, and I use this word, the words carefully, he claims that this is another way or structure or program that will ensure that government will be able to meet continuous obligation to these pension bond holders. And that is what he claims, that again, that they had a memorandum of understanding with these holders to ensure that government will work out a way that will ensure that they'll be able to meet all these obligations. So it was just a matter of time that it will come up again. Some would ask that again, that is this a precondition? I don't know, because Bernice, again, I have had an opportunity to engage technical directors, and maybe you would say that the managing director of the IMF, the African department board, might be trying to be politically correct. Bernice, I have engaged technical persons at the IMF here who are personally working on this program. And what I get from them is that Ghana has met all the preconditions. So then I ask myself that, where is this pension thing coming from?
Exactly.
And then it's in one breath, I struggle to be hard on myself and saying that as a journalist, listen, you still need to push further. But then I've been pushing so hard. And listen, I have a funny, sometimes you ask yourself, is everybody holding the same script? That can't be possible. And these guys claim that they are being truthful with you with the assessment called Ghana. They are being very truthful with you about what we should be expecting. So, hey, that is what they are saying, Bernice.
Well, so, I mean, based on what you've said, we just have to keep our fingers crossed and hope that at a point they will be reading the same scripts. But the big one, which has to do with Ghana receiving assurance from external creditors, we know the IMF boss has said that they're in talks with some of these countries like China to try and fast-track the process. Do we get any indication that post these IMF spring meetings, there will be that urgency still attached to that process of getting us the assurance?
And then it's again, I'll again try to use the words of moving away from what government is saying. I remember that again, I engaged another technical person at the IMF here. And he even explained to me, Bernice, that, listen, these creditors, apparently, after engaging government on some of the issues, they actually come back to the IMF to tick the box on some of the things the government has been saying. And for them, what they've been able to secure from these creditors is that in terms of their assurance, and maybe they don't want to box themselves into time, but it is more, very soon, these creditors will extend that assurance to Ghana and the IMF that they are going to participate in Ghana's program. And for me, that is very instructive. I remember in an interview, I pushed the minister hard on that, and he even claimed that with respect to the Eurobond holder, because we're pushing this argument about, listen, you are getting fixated or boxed up in this whole Paris Club partial creditors committee. And the minister, again, I'll use the word, claims that apparently what the IMF is really now bent on getting the clarity is the Paris Club and their decision to participate in this program. And with that alone, the board can go ahead and approve Ghana's program. So they will not be even waiting for China. They will not even be waiting for the Eurobond holders to get that assurance. Bernice, don't forget that what they are looking for is just the assurance and not reaching a conclusive deal with all these actors. And so that is very instructive. Bernice, again, you asked a question about where is this all coming from? Again, what I'm also picking behind the scenes is that Ghana is seen as that beacon of hope in the sub-region. And therefore, for instance, the US government, they can't foresee or allow for Ghana to collapse economically in terms of being that beacon of hope, security-wise and all the rest. So it appears that all those things are at play. But even though they really want to help Ghana, an IMF program wouldn't come with a blank check. Bernice, even for these external creditors that are willing to cancel our debts, they are supposed to go to very critical areas on how are you going to use these monies. Because, for instance, Bernice, if you are supposed to pay maybe UK about maybe £5 million every year on a loan, now the UK government is going to guide you as in how are you going to use that money if I'm going to cancel that debt. And that is why this debt cancellation thing is not going to be a one-off thing. It first starts with that financial insurance, and then the negotiations still goes on, Bernice.
George, are we expecting our finance minister back home, or he's still going to continue his work, trying to get us, some assurance on our external debt restructuring?
But I don't have his itinerary, and so. But engaging him, I mean, it appears that he might be coming home very soon. But again, even though the spring meetings has ended, there are still engagement going on. Even as of yesterday, there were some meetings with the World Bank. Bernice, don't forget that the $3 billion that the IMF is extending to Ghana is going directly to the Bank of Ghana for balance of payment needs. So anybody who's thinking that, hey, somebody are even asking, when is the money coming? When is the money coming? This is no money for consumption. And there are other partners that are coming on board. The World Bank, for instance, I understand will be given up to $1 billion or $2 billion support to Ghana. And that is going to go directly to projects that have been identified in the budget to finance. We'll have the Swiss government coming on board, the German government coming on board, and we could be getting up to maybe 5 billion or 10 billion spread over 4 years. So there are still engagement going on, some assurance from these partners, getting clarity from government as to what should be the way forward on some of the things. So it's not as in a done deal. And Bernice, I mean, if this annual spring meeting was not going on, maybe government would have still be in Washington, D.C. at this time, trying to negotiate something with these partners. The good thing is that this spring meeting brings all these actors together. I mean, the creme de la creme in the financial space, all the global CEOs and the big journalists coming from the Financial Times, BBC, Al Jazeera, Dow Jones, they're all here, Bernice. So the meetings are still going on government's part to try and clinch other deals. For instance, this week the minister said that he had a meeting with some of these multinationals in terms of Google, HP, and all the rest. And some of these firms are trying to give some indications that they could be coming to Ghana. So the meetings are still going on. It hasn't ended, even though the spring meetings, the annual spring meetings, it has ended.
Thank you so much, George Yafe, Assistant Editor with Joy Business here, and giving us a wrap of what's transpired at the IMF World Bank Spring meetings, and also answering a few questions that may be lingering on your mind, definitely, based on what's transpired during the time. Well, we will be having a conversation shortly about the University of Ghana's Department of Communication Studies, because there's a report that you should be interested in, and it's on the state of the Ghanaian media. I'll be back to talk more on that. Do stay. Thank you so much for staying on the AM show. It's now time to have that important discussion on my industry, the media, and it's also important to you, a very vital part of our democracy that must not be undermined. And you know, over the years, we've relied on external reports about how the Ghanaian media is faring. Recently, we shared one with you from the US State Department on human rights violations, but largely focused on what's happening within the media space, you know, which is very important. So the University of Ghana's School or Department of Communication Studies, I beg your pardon, is hoping to change that story. And this morning, I've been joined by Dr. Abena Inimwa Yabua Benin. She's the head of the department, and Kweku Korbia Asante, Communication Lead, Media Foundation for West Africa. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
And I'm very happy to see you, Doc, because last year we had this conversation, and you did promise, and I'm grateful that you delivered on that promise, to have this report published. First off, tell us why it was important and the period of study.
Right. So, you're right in saying that when we joined you last year at the launch of our 50th anniversary, we promised that as part of our celebrations, we're going to come out with this report in which we tried to test the pulse, the health of the Ghanaian media across different subjects. So we've done research on media ownership and regulation. We've done research on working conditions in the media, the safety of journalists, media financial viability, professional practice, so a host of things that we've tried to gather evidence from the field to let us be able to inform, hopefully, policy and action. So we've done this because we understand that for any progressive organization, society, industry, sector, etc., it is important every so often to go back and see what are we doing, what do we need to improve, and how do we go about it? We believe that it takes rigorous research evidence to be able to do that kind of introspection and targeting going forward. And so the idea of this report was to allow media stakeholders empirical evidence so that it's no longer anecdotal claims, it's no longer people's opinions about the media. Now we have the research before us so that if any policymaker, action person was interested in correcting problems within the media, now there is the empirics with which to so do. We've done this research across, I think, about 2 years. That's how long we've been taking the evidence, culminating into the various chapters that we're reporting on.
Wow, that would be quite a detailed report, I guess. Kweku Korbia Asante, tell us what some of the highlights are. What did you discover?
Okay. So, like you mentioned, it's a very detailed report. It touches on safety of journalist issues, media ownership issues, working conditions of the Ghanaian media, or the situation that journalists face, issues on financial viability of the media. And we have findings across all those various key areas that we studied. Let me start with the safety of journalist situation, because you were referring to the study from the U.S. State Department, which made some claims on the safety of journalists. We found out that, look, increasingly journalists are beginning to feel unsafe, insecure in the working environment where they find themselves. And more, the category of journalists who are being at that risk is investigative journalists, because of what they are trying to do, which is also something that we need very much here, accountability journalism. And then the groups of people we are finding to be the perpetrators, the leading perpetrators are people from the government, security, political parties, are those group of people. And it's pretty much profound or worrying, if I should say, that the security officials who are supposed to be protecting citizens, protecting journalists, are among the group of people who lead in terms of perpetrators against journalists. Then there are the working conditions of the Ghanaian media. The study found that many journalists and media people, for instance, don't have contracts that they are working with, right? Welfare issues. Journalists are among some of the poorly paid people in Ghana, and situations like that, including conversations around Solid, because, you know, talking about the problem of pay, remuneration, and what journalists are therefore doing, that is impacting on the output of journalists' contribution to nation building and democracy, which is also another aspect of of the study, another finding that the study made in that order. Yeah.
Right. So we'll be telling you shortly how you can access this report, because I'm already itching to read what the details are. And when he spoke about Solly, I just had a smirk on my face, because it's something that many people consider very dehumanizing in a certain way. But like he said, for many people who work in not so well-established media institutions, they can't help but accept it. But the other side of it is whether or not these monies they collect influence their work as journalists and who their allegiance is to. So tell us, Doc, how do we access this report, and when will it be launched?
We're launching the report tomorrow, God willing, at 10:30 on the University of Ghana campus, Center for Biodiversity Research. People used to know it as the Center for African Wetlands. So on UG campus tomorrow at 10:30, we launch the report, and immediately after the launch event, it goes live on the department's website so that people can access it. It's a free-to-access document. Those who come to the event tomorrow are getting printed copies, but thereafter it's available forever and ever for anybody to be able to access it. And the decision to make it free and that accessible is so that anybody who has an interest in improvements in the media doesn't have to struggle in finding the evidence with which to make changes.
And Doc has been very kind in the way she's, in my words, courting policymakers and persons interested. But how do we move this beyond that to more of a not very compulsive, but a strong indication that we must pay attention to this and we must push it in the faces of those who matter, i.e. politicians, security, owners, you know, because when we begin to sit and wait and say, oh, okay, you know, sometimes things don't work that way. I'm just wondering if there's an agenda to be a bit forceful about this.
Well, so for us at Media Foundation for West Africa, for instance, we have been echoing some of these statements again and again. What this does is to provide that empirical evidence for people like us, civil society, advocacy groups, okay, to therefore base on it as this is the evidence, and so we are moving with it. Also tomorrow we are bringing together all these key stakeholders you mentioned: media owners, security organizations, the ministry, which is representing the government side of the conversation, and all those key stakeholders who matter in this conversation to come see what is found on these matters. And then, of course, the other groups of people like us, civil society, who are going to drive the change, move with such conversation, are also going to be present. And we are saying this is like a tool, this is like an arsenal that we are going to work with to look for that change. We are going to always make that noise, but we always need something that is good enough, solid, so that it moves from we have seen an anecdote to we have found, because there has been an empirical study to that effect.
If I may just quickly chip in, we do also plan post the launch of the event some key stakeholder engagement activities. So meetings with, say, regulators, GIBA, independent broadcasters, so key stakeholder organizations. We do plan to sit down with them and pick out aspects of the report that specifically matter to them or that they are positioned to cause change on, and bring their minds to some of the recommendations that we make relative to those issues. We also hope that the media would support us in sustaining conversations on the issues emanating out of the report, because I think that is very critical. We have the unique position of setting agenda and shaping opinions. And so if the media demonstrates keen interest in this report, which is about us, if we take it up and continue to keep the conversations on it alive, then policy people, key stakeholders would have more pressure on their doorsteps to try and pay attention to some of the things that need changing.
And you know what they say, we are accused of being strong fighters for others and not ourselves.
Exactly.
So hopefully with this, that narrative will change. But another reason I'm particularly happy about this report is I recall the last time I discussed the Press Freedom Index with Information Minister Kojo Poku. One of his issues of contention was, why are we relying on external reports on things that happen here? And it was almost difficult to argue or to debate with him because he kept raising that.
Right.
And so I'm happy. Now this is home-based, study focusing on us as a Ghanaian people. But Doc, how often will we see this?
So a part of the reason this hasn't been happening in Ghana and why the argument about it's external, the evidence is coming from external would be, is because funding is a challenge. I mean, it takes some money to gather the kind of evidence nationwide that we've been able to gather in this report. And so resources is always a concern. We hope that the strategies we've used in raising funds to do this report would continue to be effective in the future to allow us to be able to launch a similar report every 3 years. So we envisage this to be a triennial report. Other industries do similar things. For instance, ISA does the state of the Ghanaian media economy. We don't think that the state of the Ghanaian economy, the media doesn't turn around that quickly for us to want to be doing this every year. Not that much would have changed in the story. So we think that by 3 years, every 3 years, there will be enough evidence to be able to trend out and see what are the patterns, what is changing, what is stagnating, etc., etc. So we look to this being a triennial affair, granting that we'll be able to secure funding to be able to do this. And yeah.
So remind us of the launch time again, and if anybody wants to be there in person, is there the opportunity?
Right, so tomorrow at 10:30, Center for Biodiversity Research on the University of Ghana campus, we launch this. Director General GBC is the keynote speaker. But the launch being physical there doesn't mean people who are unable to be there physically would not be able to participate nor see what we're sharing in the report. In fact, JoyNews, your true lovely self, you'll be carrying it live on the channel, but also on your Facebook page. And so there is opportunity for people to participate in the program, even when they cannot be physical. And we made that provision, and we're so thankful to Multimedia for agreeing to this, because we think conversations about the media shouldn't only be by media people. Ghanaians should care about the media. It is the very foundation of the democracy we practice, as you alluded to earlier. So we should all have an interest in the health of the media if we are interested in sustaining the health of our democracy.
And before I let you go, since you said health, what will your diagnosis be generally? Based on the report, are we a healthy media in Ghana, or are we on the verge of developing a chronic disease, or what exactly are we? What's the status of our health?
Well, the Ghanaian media, it's not healthy. It's far from being active health-wise, or far from being a very strong person for what it's supposed to be. Ghana's media is on support system now, from what we are seeing, from safety of journalists situations, from financial viability conversations, from conversation on the working conditions of journalists, on conversations about their contribution to national development, on their own ethics and things that they are supposed to be abided by. There are a lot of flaws and gaps that the media needs help in trying to achieve in that regard. And so, which is why it's important that people have copies of this, people join us in the launch, analyze the report, digest them, and see the next step of action that we can take to keep the media active, strong, and healthy to drive the national development agenda.
As doctors do usually, the consult. Do you agree, Doc? Is that a fair diagnosis?
I think so. In fact, if we're in COVID time still, so as the COVID people would tell us, there are fundamental, what is it they underlying conditions and comorbidities.
Okay.
There are problems that can work with each other to make us really worse off if we don't begin to pursue reforms in the media. And I believe that the State of the Ghanaian Media Report gives us some lens as to how do we begin to pursue these reforms that are needed.
I'm grateful that you joined me this morning. This morning, we've been talking about the State of the Ghanaian Media Report, which will be launched tomorrow. I can't wait. I really can't wait to read that report. And definitely, we'll be here to tease out all the very important details for you much later. But the launch is at 10:30 a.m. tomorrow at the University of Ghana's Biodiversity Center. Okay, used to be the Center for West African Wetlands. So, but if you're not able to join physically, please, you can find your way on social media. JoyNews on TV will be carrying that event live for you. And like my guests have said, this is important for all of us because the media doesn't work in isolation. We work with you and you work with us. And so please, let's just all focus on this report and take us out of the ICU so that we can perform our roles better. This morning, I've been speaking to Kweku Krobi Asante. He is communication lead with the Media Foundation for West Africa, and Dr. Abena Yeboah, Enimwa Yeboah Benin. She's head Department of Communication Studies at the University of Ghana. Let me say thank you to you once again. I appreciate your company. Well, Benjamin and I will be back shortly to get interactive with you. Do stay. Thank you so much for staying on the AM show. It's now time to get interactive with you. You can call us 0302 11691 0302 11691. Let us know what your thoughts are. This morning we've been talking about the PBC's troubles and how there's been a steep decline in the company's fortunes in the past few years. We've also been talking about the state of the Ghanaian media. We've been receiving a wrap on the IMF World Bank spring meetings. What are your concerns? Do you have any fears? And also, if you want to chip in something about the Ghanasco situation we discussed yesterday, the update is that the Minister for Education and the Northern Regional Director of the GES visited the place on a fact-finding mission. The headmaster and the housemaster, senior housemaster, are still not at post. They've been asked to step aside for investigations to happen. So let us know what your thoughts are. We'll be glad to take them. Akonoba is calling us. Hello, Akonoba. How are you?
Hello, beautiful Bernice.
Hello, Akonoba. Thanks for your kind words. Good morning to you. What are your thoughts, please?
Yeah, good morning. I love your talk. You see, I want to touch on the statement by the police. I don't know the pressure the police is trying to take.
Sorry, I'm a bit low. Statement by the police on what?
Yeah, the police to MPP and NPP, the joint meeting that they had.
Okay.
Yeah, you talked about it today. The police are afraid to arrest those that have been accused. I don't get it. It's like they want to massage alert crime. We are petitioning you to arrest or invite by the camp. Instead of you to do that, you are now meeting the parties for what? You see, the moment that they arrested that NPC Swami organizer, I said the police are opening the floodgates. You see, the same thing has been committed by the Champo. Why are they not arresting the same way they arrested the Swami guy? Sometimes the police, they do something that they make us feel they are not neutral. I'm telling you for a fact. Number two, I said it here the last time that if you trust Kenneth Rata, you trust him at your own risk. You trust him at your own risk. Yesterday I was listening to Ivan on GM Express, and I was so sad. Why are we doing this to ourselves? And then one person kind of crack here and say, this is a situation. Why? I don't know to keep attention. Some of us, we have our money there. So you see, if there is no money, be truthful with Ghanaians. They cannot shit. They can't hear the hot. There's no money. Even if I tell you I cannot pay, then Ghanaians will know that you have mismanaged the economy. Then Ghanaians will understand you. But to massage, to go here, to come
right,
here.
Akonaba. Yeah, what point well noted. We'll have to end it here so we can engage other people, but we appreciate your call. Akonaba there sharing his thoughts with us on developments on the NDC's petition to the Ghana Police Service for Mr. Brian Champong to be picked up over some comments he made on a campaign platform of the NPP. Do well to share your thoughts with us as well. We are always delighted to take your thoughts. And Benjamin Akakpo, interesting conversation you had there on the PBC's troubles and what the future holds for the company.
It's just like a movie. Makes for interesting reading, basically. It's quite a lot that the deputy CEO laid on me, things to contemplate. But it just is clear that there's been a pattern. This has been going on. Look, just in a specific year, I think 2008 or 2009, this entity ranked 89th or so on the Ghana Club 100. A year after that, they were number 1. They actually managed to do this successively, sometime around 2010. So you'd ask yourself, what happened between then and now? But they've had their own challenges. And usually with most of these entities, it has to do with liquidity challenges. And a syndicated loan expected for COCOBOD, disbursement of seed money and all of that. They can't go to the banks because their balance sheet doesn't look as good. Their liabilities are more than their assets. But
right.
That's the situation there.
Right. Let's pick out our next caller, Darko Samson. Hello, good morning. Thank you for holding on. Kindly share your thoughts with us. Too bad we lost him, unfortunately. Apologies for that, Darko. We're really sorry about that. Do calling again, and we'll be glad to take your comments and share with the rest of the world. But Benjamin, you were talking about the PBC's woes, and it's sad. It's sad that company after company, we don't seem to find our feet when it comes to managing our own affairs. You know, and
even our best performing ones, because the PBC has been
exactly
the best performing
at a point.
At a point.
Yeah. So that's a shame. I don't know, Benjamin. I don't know. It reminds me of a conversation I have with some of our colleagues here about whether we should still remain hopeful about the Ghanaian situation. I'm adamant that we should, but they believe otherwise.
You don't remain like adamant. These, you don't clutch at straw.
Yes,
you must have a basis.
Of course, but that's my point I'm making. So stories like these just keep deflating that hope.
Yeah.
You know, because then if we are believing and hopeful, we must make positive strides. But when you're hoping against hope, and every time you're hearing, you know, news like this, then you wonder if those people actually are better off not, you know, having any hope at all. All right, we have a caller from Tamale. Yopu, let's hear you, please.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Yobudu from Tamale.
Can you please speak up a bit?
Yes, I'm saying my name is Yobudu from Tamale.
Yes, we got it. Kindly share your thoughts with us.
Yes. Just on this, our IMF deal with our in terms of our debt restructuring. You see that the finance minister just gave the assurance that they have broken all the records set under the IMF deal. And back here in Ghana, you are still restructuring your debt with pension holders. So you don't really get what the situation is. You are saying over there that you have been able to successfully pass through all the requirements. So why this restructuring again? So this morning I was watching yesterday's interview with the information minister, and I realized that they will say something today and then act differently. So it's making us become confused as to what is actually happening. Because if you are telling Ghanaians that you are making ground, you are gaining ground in terms of the requirements, you are passing all the requirements. So having had over 80% subscription at the domestic debt exchange program, the requirement was 80, you had over 80%. So what again are you looking for? Do you just want to collapse people's livelihood, or what are they doing? You want at the end of the day, you get this IMF program and there will be nobody to govern. This is totally not fair. And people have said it, that this finance minister should be changed so that a different person will lead these negotiations. In fact, the only thing that comes from the finance minister is good morning. Anything that comes again, you don't have to believe him.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. We appreciate your call. Hopefully, we can get another call up before we wrap up here. But Benjamin, and that was an interesting conversation I had with George Wiafe on exactly what the direction is for us, you see. Because if you're someone who's been following the conversations, you get your hope is lifted, and then at a point you're like, okay, what's all this roller coaster?
It's dashed.
You know, and the issue with the pension funds as well, because according to George, the fund says we've done everything, we're just waiting for. So why the need to bring up that conversation, or even, you know, think about it? Well, Robert is calling us from Sinyane. Robert, let's hear you.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. I think that we as a country, we have not been truthful to ourselves in the first place. And so I have always had this belief that the foundation of this world is truth. And once you as a country have defied this truth, you are part of the world. You are part of the land which is created by God through truth. And so when this truth is not your key pillar in governance, then I think that these things are bound to happen. Why is it that the other countries are enjoying? For example, the European countries, they follow what their law is saying they should do. Remember, the law in itself has made nothing perfect. But then, truth and reality is what will make us perfect as a country. But in this our case, you realize that a lot of things have happened over the years, and it is because we are not facing the reality. I don't see us facing the reality today until we suffer and realize that we have been following the wrong path all this while. I believe that we can do better, but then the right people who are supposed to be in leadership positions of influence are relegated to the back. So how do you expect the change? I always feel sad for the vulnerable ones in the country because we have lied to ourselves in so many ways, including our political divide. People say they are going to serve, and you realize that at the end of the day, they are fighting to go and serve. Why are you fighting to go and serve? Truly, I don't believe in them, because I believe that if somebody is going to serve me, I must do everything possible to help the person serve me, but not the person to buy me and fight me and destroy property, destroy a lot of things because the person wants to go and serve. That is not reality.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts.
So the earlier we face reality, the better.
Thank you.
Or reality.
We appreciate your time here this morning, and that last bit about what is in there for you and why you need to fight if you claim you're just coming to serve. You saw that story by the NDC's Pablo, who says you'd be disappointed if you came into politics looking for money.
Yeah.
But Benjamin, it appears that the story on the street is otherwise, isn't it?
It is. And I was just looking at one of the crawlers on our screens about how we had broken all records in terms of meeting the requirements from the IMF. It just hit me. We major so much on the miners in this country. We major on the miners. We are penny wise and pound foolish. We celebrate the least things. In fact, our leaders have got us to the point where they don't give us what we deserve, to the point that when we get crumbs, we're happy. Reminds me of that analogy of Joseph Stalin, supposedly plucking the feathers of a chicken and now handing it some corn, and we peck at it. Our situation is just, but you see, every day I go out there, I interact with people like us, young people, and it gets frustrating, really frustrating.
It does.
With all these things we get to discuss. Sometimes it's heavy when we have to have some of these discussions, but it is what it is.
Yes, and we've just got our fingers crossed. If you're like me, you keep hoping that one day you wake up to some good news and some good trends, because this won't happen in an instant. We need to take the right steps to correcting the things that have brought us to this point. Well, let's end on a happy note, please, at least.
We have some birthdays.
Yes, we do. It's the birthday of Elder Theophilus Norte Yeboah. You are with the Restitution Assembly of the Apostolic Church of Ghana. A very happy birthday to you. We wish you long life and prosperity, and our very own
Kweku Owusu Pepra.
Yes, sir.
Channel manager, JoyNews.
JoyNews.
Yeah. The guy with the great things. Someone was saying out there that he's ancient of days.
Yes, I know, right? Kweku, we owe you a cup of coffee today. At least let that be.
This guy drinks coffee.
I think that's the only thing that he may appreciate, because I'm not sure a cake will work. Or fufu for lunch, yeah, that works. A very happy birthday to you. We wish you long life, good health, great ideas to keep us running as a channel.
And this one came from our very own Kojo Brace. This one says, I feel so lucky to have such a beautiful and caring wife like you, honey. I wish you much happiness on your birthday. I love you so much. Mrs. Lorinda Brace, from your husband, I think it may be a relative, Cedric Kwabena Brace.
Ah, okay.
Lansah, you have to start paying for these services. You can't be doing this for free. But to you, a very happy birthday, Lorinda Brace.
Right. Thank you so much. If today's your birthday as well, from our heart to yours, blessings and peace. That'll be all from us for today's edition of the AM show. We are very grateful that you made time to join us. God willing, Benjamin and I are back again tomorrow morning, obviously focusing on matters that affect you, are important to you, and will help us as a nation to get to that destination we hope to get to. Until then, it's goodbye. Up next is News Desk.